computer. All right. So I'm recording on this computer.
Yeah. It let you let you all the way. It would let you, won't let you at all. You don't get half pregnant, is what I say.
I wouldn't want to be half pregnant because then I'd only give birth to half a baby, and that would be like Sodom. It's too biblical for me. All right, so that was 3 minutes after the top of the hour. Who else? Oh, I see. Joshua's here, a Zoom user. Can I change it? Yes, I can change his name. Joshua.
Hey guys, I'm going to sign off. I
Yeah.
don't know if you guys know, but I'm out here in Honolulu for about 3 days, helping my parents prepare for a permanent transition to Taiwan. So handling a bunch of moving and packing and labeling stuff. So
Say
anyway,
hello to your parents for us.
Okay.
Have fun.
Right.
Thank you.
Up and up. Talk to you guys later.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I sent you a prompt 7 ChatGPT prompt to apply the 48 law of the power to your business. The thought I share because it's interesting. It has a fine-tuning, interaction, business consulting flavor in it.
48 laws of power. Never heard of that.
There's a book that somebody, if you read the first paragraph of the article, it would explain.
On the other hand, I don't have a business anyway, so it doesn't matter.
No, I'm just saying that it's a way to customize the prompt. The way that she did it is really interesting.
Customize what?
Prompt.
Prompt. Oh, so it's prompt engineering.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm going to give a talk on that general topic at the end of the month.
Yeah, so this will help you. So this one here, if you read I'd rather you read other than I read it.
Yeah, but I'm going to actually talk about constructivist learning techniques and demonstrate that if you use Socratic methods or other general constructivist, that ChatGPT can, within the silo of one conversation, learn things that and understand things that it was never trained on.
Right. Anyway, so this is one of the first prompts that she suggested about. I'm going to put it up for you. I'm interested to apply these 3 rules from Robert Books, 48 laws of power to my business. Number 3, conceal. Number 7, get others to do the work. Number 11, learn how can I utilize this law. Something like that. Again, it's very fine-tuning, very specific. I love the way that because she explained it very nicely.
I just turned on AI Companion.
Sounds good. Thank you. I'm so glad you remember that. I sometimes forget.
Let me make sure that I close that thing without closing the whole bloody window. When you do chat and there's a close box on the chat, it's real easy to click the wrong X and close the whole bloody thing instead of just the chat window.
Tell me about it. I got four little window open. Yeah. I love the full closed caption thing. That works really well for me.
Yeah. The advantage, though, on the Macintosh is that the entire window is on the left side. On Windows, it's right next to the chat box on the right side. You got to be really careful to click the right X.
Right.
Bad human factors design.
Yeah. Until they get it right.
They never get it right. Once a bureaucracy makes a mistake, it can't be fixed.
You know why?
And once a corrupt bureaucracy makes a mistake, not only can it not be fixed, it can't even be mentioned.
Right. I have a good example on that. The CPU 6800 versus 6808 or something. Do you remember the way the register works? It's the reverse side of the other one.
Oh, what do you call it? I forget the name of that nomenclature. The little endian, big endian. That's what it was. Little endian, big endian. That used to drive me crazy.
Yeah.
Somehow they eventually got rid of the other one. Eventually, I don't know which other.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a problem in FTPing a file, and the file would come in with the wrong ending or something like that. And you had to somehow figure out how to fix it.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if you saw it. Stacy woke up with a headache.
Yeah.
So she says she's not going to be on.
Yeah, I saw your advice about getting coffee. I don't think I would want to give that advice because coffee dehydrate her.
The thing about headaches is that one of the ways you get headaches is if you have been drinking coffee and you skip a day.
Oh, okay,
you
got it.
get caffeine deficiency headache, and you
Okay.
fix it by having you're missing caffeine. But I don't know if her headache was caffeine deficiency or something else.
Got it. Now it makes sense. It's like, what the heck are you telling to do something to dehydrate her?
No, it's just that, and she would know because I can't remember if she drinks coffee or not. I don't know.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, I think she.
So yeah, you skip your daily caffeine beverage and then you get a headache.
I don't do that. I skip coffee all the time. I started drinking coffee. You may not believe this, Barry. I started drinking coffee when I was 5 or 6 years old.
I can believe that, although I didn't really start until, well, I'm not sure when I started, but not as a child, no.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you say you drink Coca-Cola, well, that's caffeine.
Yeah.
So it's only the taste, it's not the presence or absence of the caffeine.
Yeah, I never thought of that. Thanks for pointing it out. So it's like when people say that you drink coffee when you're 6 years old, I say you did too. You did too.
Yeah. But I mean, and you can eat coffee ice cream. There's your flavor. So the only thing is, well, coffee's bitter, so you put sugar in it. But the caffeine is not limited to coffee or tea. It's in soft.
Right. So what happened is that my grandma has a general store in the village. So the coffee, we just pour like half a pound of coffee in the big kettle. Yeah. And boil the water with the firewood. It takes like half an hour to start the fire going. That's how I grew up, by the way.
By drinking boiled coffee.
Yeah, boiled coffee, and then you pour like half a pound of sugar, the cane sugar, into the pot.
The thing is, boiled coffee loses its coffee flavor because you're not supposed to boil.
No, it's not boiling. It's not like you boil the water, you pour the coffee into the powder, and then you let it sit the whole kettle full of coffee with a lot of seed in it. So when you drink it, it doesn't get filtered. You gotta spit out the seed all the time.
Yeah, that's why they got rid of percolating coffee percolators, because you're putting boiling water into the coffee, and that basically destroys the flavor.
Yeah, that's how we made our coffee for years.
So then they invented the drip coffee maker, which eventually destroyed the percolator.
Or cold brew, right?
Well, I don't know. Is there such a thing as cold brew coffee?
Yeah, of course.
I've never heard of cold brew coffee. Maybe Starbucks has it. I don't know.
Yeah, cold brew is very famous. It's not that sour. It's not that, I like a cold brew coffee. You can buy them in a can now also.
Well, okay. Well,
try it one day.
I occasionally do a fix-it job for somebody, and sometimes they'll give me is a gift card, and so I keep getting these gift cards for Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts. So I redeem the gift cards. I end up with 4 big bags of Dunkin' Donuts coffee that's going to last me 2 months or something.
Wow.
But yeah, between Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts, I think I've ended up with $75 worth of coffee that people give me because they want to give you something. They don't want to give you cash because that's too crass. Right. So they give you a gift card for like Dunkin' Donuts or something. And
that's good. So your blood pressure come down a little bit from last weekend?
Oh, let me look at the numbers here. They're on another window. Let's see. So the high point, well, what was a week ago? Today's the 11th. So if I subtract the 4th. Yeah. All right, so it was so my reading actually is from the morning of the 4th before the call. So it was only 1:40 in the morning, and I didn't record the one during the call because first of all I was wearing my sweatshirt.
Yeah.
And I didn't trust the reading, but so the numbers are like 140s, 150s, 160s, then down to 140. So it was between 140 and 160 the last week.
When is the 160 measure?
The 166 was the 7th. But I don't know what day of the week that was. That was Monday. Tuesday.
That time.
Is that Tuesday?
It was.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I know. I understand why. The 7th was a Tuesday. And that's the day that I go into the fix-it shop. And as I recall, I overslept that day. And so I was running late. And I was kind of in a rush. So I was sort of enthused. Not over enthused, it's the wrong word, but over
Moving
energized.
faster, yeah.
Yeah. So that day I was kind of in a rush because I was running late in my morning stuff. But then on the 8th, which was, I don't know what day of the week that was, it was down to just below 140. I've only had, I think, one or two times I got down below 140, which is the goal that my PCP really wants me to stay at.
Yeah.
Below. And the days when it comes up low like that, I sort of wonder whether or not it's some glitch, either because the cuff's not on right or some other crazy reason.
But you can trigger the three measurement to give you the average, right?
Well, no, I do the 3 measure. Sometimes the 3 measurement things does 4 measurements.
Okay, because you didn't quite get it right.
Because I can think one of them is sort of maybe so far off the mark that throws it away. And I'm always wondering if am I really getting the cuff on correctly with the right, and because when it does it 4 times, then I kind of wonder, what am I doing wrong?
Do you have a routine that before you do the measurement, push the button, you sit down for 5 minutes without moving, all that?
See, I used to do it before I got out of bed. I'd be lying in bed and I had the unit sitting next to me and I could just put the cuff on while lying in bed. And then one night when I moved the covers, it fell on the floor and it dislodged the batteries. So I put the batteries back in, but about that time I was getting, maybe I didn't put the batteries back in good and solid. So a couple of times I got that it tried to take my blood pressure and then I got the little battery signal. So then I thought, oh, maybe the batteries really are, getting low. So then I found in the basement a power supply that was the right voltage and the right, connector. And I hooked that up. But that seemed to be I'm not sure if I always had it plugged in good and solid. So sometimes it would work and sometimes I would still get the battery signal. But the result is that instead of having it sitting on the bed, I now had to bring it into the kitchen so I could plug it into the wall socket on the kitchen counter. So now I'm up, I'm out of bed, I'm standing upright in the kitchen at the counter where it's plugged in. And I'm wondering if the fact that I'm up and walking around already maybe is changing because I'm not just still lying in bed.
Yeah. I mean, the way that my doctor take my blood pressure, this is what I observe. He say he want me to sit on the bed, sit on the whatever the examination bed. So while I sit on it and I need to, calm down for about 5 minutes, at least minimally, ideally it's about 10 minutes, but 5 minutes is good. Then breathe normally and make sure the cuff is on the same level as my heart.
Yeah. Well, that's not an issue because if I'm standing up, my bicep is at the same level as my chest anyway.
Got it.
But the problem is that I have now been up, walking. Oh, and the other thing is that in order to get to a bare arm, I often sleep with something, to keep my upper body warm. So I have to take, this time of year, I've got to take off a layer or two with my bare arm. So I'm not only am I standing up, but I'm basically
cold.
Doing some
exposed to the cold air also, because when you're exposed to the cold air, your heart will pump more blood to the body to keep.
That's the other thing. It's like 63 degrees in the house.
Right.
And so
I would recommend get an extension cord. Get an extension cord to the power, whatever so that you get power next to your bed, and then do it while you're in the bed. Yeah,
I could do that. I still have to take off the extra layers that I'm wearing.
But at least you're in the blanket.
Yeah. So anyway, the thing is that as long as I'm always consistent, so I have a change in paradigm, but now the new paradigm, if I'm consistent. But the thing is, yes, I'm up out of bed, it's cold.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's why
The
it's
cold make a big difference because the cold air will trigger your heart to pump more warm blood to your body to keep your body warm.
But the thing is, it is nominally below 160, which is what the standard range is. And my doctor wants it to be below 140, which is 20 psi below the upper range of the normal.
Yeah.
So, and I've been, so I've been putting the data into this system that I can't remember what you call it, but and then I put the data in the system, and then I can ask it to generate plots for me. You've seen them, I think I posted.
Yeah, I saw you posted on the your messenger.
But so it's like 150 plus or minus 10 roughly. 55 plus or minus 10.
Yeah, that's high.
It's still higher, but also so I increased both my amlodipine, the calcium channel blocker, and the lisinoprol, which I can't tell you the characteristic of it. It's ACE something. I don't know. It's too
ACE inhibitor.
Yeah, ACE inhibitor. Anyhow, so both of them are now at 10 milligrams a day.
Right.
Started off at 5, and then she told me to double them.
Yeah.
So now they're both at 10 milligrams a day, plus the tamsulosin, the Flomax, which is, I think, maybe probably doesn't interact. And then the iron is 1 every other day, 325 every other day. But since I reduced the rate at which I'm taking the iron, I haven't had any issues of constipation. I've been able to move my bowels just fine.
That's good.
And I also think I've sort of made sure that I'm drinking more liquids than the sort of the minimum that I used to drink.
And walking?
So I'm not, since we've had cold weather and also some rainy weather, I have been walking outside for about a week now. But I am trying to walk inside the house, down the stairs, and trying to get as much standing and walking inside the house. And 2 days a week I am out of the house. So the 2 days that I go to the community center, there's a fair amount of standing and walking at least 2 days a week. And today,
you need to have at least half an hour walking a day. Whatever.
Well, if you count just walking around the house,
that doesn't count.
Why doesn't it count? It's still standing up and walking.
Well, the trouble with that is that think of it like when you exercise, when you walk, it's consistently pacing and you're consistently working your body. When you're standing, it's sort of like you take 3 steps, you sit down and you do something, and you take another 3 more steps.
Well, no, when I get up and walk around the house, it's more than 3 steps. It's maybe a few minutes. And then I do go up and down the stairs just for the hell of it. I mean,
so that helps. That helps a lot.
Yeah,
that's good. Well, sorry, I'm checking on you, making sure you got what you need.
Well, I don't mind that at all, because it turns out I'm not very good at checking on myself.
Yeah, I know. I have the same point. I have people check on me, so I check on people. Yeah.
So, but other people said, well, my color's returned. I don't look pale anymore.
Yep, you do look
good. I don't look like I'm, anemic or whatever.
Right.
That they said I was.
Yeah, you do look. Your face look red. Yeah.
I never really noticed how anemic I looked. First of all, I don't normally, study my face. So.
Okay.
Also, when I go to the grocery, also not every week. I don't have to go grocery shopping every week. But when I go to the grocery store, I take my time, going up and down the aisles. Instead of trying to be real quick about it, I just intentionally stroll through the grocery store longer than I normally used to, just walking.
You can get the bag of the potato 20 pound and then walk around and then put it back on the way out.
Well, no, I don't do that. But when I bring the groceries in, instead of trying to carry 2 bags, I'll make twice as many trips with half the carrying, just to get a little extra walking in.
Good. You got a plus for that.
So I am doing things that sort of just increase the amount of standing and walking that I would normally try to minimize. I no longer try to minimize it.
That's good. Wonderful. Yeah, health is important. The problem is, unless you do something about it, and if you're on a hospital bed, there's nothing you can do about it when you're in a hospital bed.
That was the problem, is especially in the ER where they had those rails up that you basically you're in jail.
Yeah.
Can't even get up to use the commode because there's no way to get out. When they moved me to the main hospital, it's a different kind of bed, and yes, you can get out of that one.
Yeah.
You can adjust that manually yourself, but in the ER you couldn't.
Yeah, that's why I say do the healthy thing before you need your health.
Well, I mean, the diverticular bleeding was completely anomalous, unexpected. It's like only time anything like that's ever happened, and came out of nowhere, unexpected, had no, except that it might have been exacerbated by the fact that I had chronic blood pressure.
Yep.
So that might have made it worse. Also, the fact that I stupidly took aspirin, not realizing there was no reason to do that.
Yeah.
I thought there might be pain, and I was taking aspirin and ibuprofen. And I thought after 2 or 3 days, I go, why am I taking painkillers? I don't have any pain, and then it's a blood thinner. But the first 2 or 3 days, I hadn't really thought that part of it through.
Yeah. You threw your aspirin away?
No, I still have aspirin. No reason to throw it away.
You shouldn't take any aspirin.
I take it if I have headache or pain, I'll keep it.
No, you cannot do that because you have bleeding in your internally. Aspirin will trigger that. That's really bad for you. You can take that Tylenol, you can take ibuprofen, but not aspirin.
Yeah. Well, I do have ibuprofen on hand.
Yeah, that's what you take if you have pain.
I'm down to a small. I used to buy aspirin in the big bottles and then decant it into these small ones.
Well, until the name of the game is system thinking. Until you figure out the one that caused the trouble will repeat itself.
Yeah. So, well, remember that when I had the bleeding, I wasn't taking aspirin at the time. I took it
because you've been taking for so long. You're thinning out the
But I was taking. See, I only took aspirin rarely if I had a headache. And I hadn't had any headaches.
For how long?
Oh, I had months, probably.
Months. Okay, got it. All I know is that how they tell you to take aspirin 8 milligram for a long time from 20, 30 years ago. And my doctor said, nope, you don't do that.
Well, they do take baby aspirin because that keeps down the probability of a heart attack, I think.
Yeah, heart attack.
Stroke.
Stroke, yeah, that's right. But then it's not, they found out that it's not a good thing to do. So
really, that I hadn't heard.
Yeah, you can ask ChatGPT. I think my doctor told me about it about 25 years ago. He said, do not do that. So I said, okay, because I say, everybody's doing it. Why shouldn't I do that, right? You say, no, not for you.
Well, that's the problem. These old wives' tale. We have practices which are generally recognized as safe, GRAS, and then half a century later they figure out no, they're contraindicated. But you can't get them out of the system because they're locked into the regulations is generally recognized as safe.
Yeah.
What was the last one? Oh, the one for the cold. The downside of the cold remedies are no better than a placebo. I can't remember the name of the particular drug that's in them, dextromorphan or something like that.
Right.
That was in all the cold remedies, and they decided that they're no better than a placebo.
Well, that's a big topic.
On the other hand, I haven't been buying or taking cold remedies. I mean, years ago, I used to buy, if I had the flu or something, I would buy NyQuil or something like that. But, I haven't had the flu. We've been getting flu vaccines now and COVID vaccines. So I don't get the flu anymore. At least I haven't had the flu.
Yeah.
And so I don't have any cold or flu remedies on hand. I haven't needed them.
Yeah, I only get cold when I was two ways, I guess. I get cold. One is, to if I'm in a gathering where somebody got sick and pass it to me. That's one. But typically, it's coming from my grandson or my,
Oh.
the kids who are going through the kindergarten daycare phase.
Thing is, I live alone, so nobody's bringing stuff in. I don't have people living in the house with me that are bringing, germs into the house from the public agora.
Yeah.
And even when I go to the community center, I'm not in a crowd. I'm in with a few people, and we're not, we're not face to face breathing each other's faces. So
Yeah. One time I watched a 60-minute recording or whatever reporting was talking about. As long as you don't touch your nose and you touch your eye, it doesn't matter. You can hug someone, you won't get a flu shot. Trust me, I tried it 50 times. I still get it.
I just got my last shot. The last one was RSV. So this year I think it's 5 shots. I got pneumonia, I got Shingrix, I got COVID, I got flu, and RSV. That's 5, right? Did I say all 5?
Yeah.
And I finally got the last of them, the RSV, just last week. And there really aren't any more. I have to do a second Shingrix in like 4 months, I think. You do 2 of them about 2 to 6 months apart. So I'll do a Shingrix, I think, next spring, and then that'll be it. Because I don't know. Well, I guess there might be another strain of COVID in a year, possibly, that they'll give another COVID shot. But
is it ever stop? I don't think it's just a continuous thing. It's part of our life now. Well,
the problem is that they keep mutating. So the strains, but the new strains are not always, but generally weaker.
Yeah.
So the newer strains are milder than the original one way back in 2019, 2020. So even if you get COVID with the latest strain, it's barely more than sniffles. No fever, no aches and pains, just a little bit of a runny nose and some sneezing and some coughing.
I mean, you use the word weaker. It's interesting. For me, I think of it as it's more friendlier to our human body.
What's more friendly?
The virus, the COVID virus, the next generation get more friendly because it's already getting used to it or something along that line.
Well, it's just that, they say this is pretty common. Well, I mean, when it mutates, it can either mutate into a weaker strain, or in the case of antibiotic resistant one.
I think of it chemically, if I may explain that real quick. If you mutate it and using our blood, human blood, as a medium to mutate, how far can you be from the blood? Because the mutation is depending on the food that it takes for mutation is from the human blood, right?
I don't know enough about what.
I mean, from the chemical perspective, right? So it's
the white blood cells that try to kill it. I think it's the white blood cells. But the thing is that if it can gestate in your system and you exhale it before the white blood cells have overpowered it, then it has this period of time where it's ahead of the game. Right. And if you don't have any symptoms for the first 3 days, you can be contagious and not know it because you don't have any symptoms.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's how one way it can spread.
Yeah,
because you don't have any symptoms, you don't even know that you got it in your system.
Yeah, I'm focusing on the mutation part of it. Think of it like grandson, granddaughter, great grandson. So I say that if you're coming from the blood canal of the human, where the blood is, where the medium that feeds you to keep you alive, how bad can you be? Because you already blend. It's like a dog. After several generations, you become obedient.
I don't know. Biochemistry has got enough subtlety to it that.
Yeah, I understand. I'm thinking about from the perspective, how could you mutate? Because if you mutate and using my material, you can be more friendly to me. That's what I'm saying.
I don't think that's true, because the mutation is essentially a random perturbation in the genetic makeup.
But what is keeping you alive? What is keeping you alive so that you can mutate? You're feeding on my blood.
Yeah, but so what?
But that's my medium. That's my environment.
Yeah, but why would the I mean, sugar is sugar is sugar, right? Or ATP is A. I don't know that that affects the mutation. The mutation is just that one of the base pairs changes randomly,
Mm,
and then what happens is that changes the shape of the spike protein a little bit,
mm,
and the
mhm,
shape of it is such that it no longer matches the key in the lock.
mm. I'm
So
wondering, I mean, if the mutation was happening in the, let's say, in a monkey's body, I then, the mutation would be, you don't think the difference?
real question is whether or not the mutation survives and reproduces without being knocked down by the body's defenses. It's really the defenses that say, oh, here comes a new strain. We better nip it in the bud. If it doesn't nip it in the bud, it's going to become contagious. If it nips in the bud, it doesn't become contagious.
I mean, I go back to the Charles Darwin. I mean, you need to adapt yourself so that you survive in the environment perspective.
Well, and that's why it used to be that you let the kids go out and play in the dirt.
Yeah.
And they would pick up all kinds of bugs, but they would pick them up at a low rate,
Right.
and your body would develop immunity.
Right.
So the whole thing about immunity, how you develop immunity, well, that's the whole point of a vaccine. You give a very low dose,
Right.
enough that you don't get sick, but your body says, "Oh, there's a foreign agent here. I have to construct an antibody for it." So the
Right.
question is, can you construct an antibody fast enough?
Mm,
And that sort of depends on how strange is the foreign agent.
right.
So
And-
COVID, when it first hit, was a very strange
Right.
agent. And
You need
Oh.
some historical data to create
Right.
that vaccine, because otherwise you put the wrong vaccine in there, it's not useful for it.
but see, now they can engineer these vaccines with genetic engineering, or however you want to, the RNA
Right.
synthesis process. They can synthesize these vaccines, where in the old days they had to do it the hard way.
Mm,
And so on the other hand, these synthesized vaccines are not cheap. The Shingrix is $315 a shot,
wow.
and Shingrix is $215 a shot, and RSV is $315 a shot.
Wow.
So this year I spent $500 on the 2 shots, but if I had Part D, there's a $500 deductible anyway.
Mm,
So even if I had Part D, I'd still be paying $500 for these shots, because that's the deductible.
mm. What's Part D? I'm not familiar with it.
In Medicare, Part
Right.
D is the one that pays for drugs.
Part D is the one that pays the bill.
No, pays. So you have hospitalization.
Okay.
You have doctor's visits. That's part A and B. A and B are doctor's visits and being in the hospital. Those,
Mm.
and then D is if you want coverage for drugs.
Mm,
When you go to the pharmacy, do they cover the drugs? The thing is that if you look at what you pay for Part D, which is optional, you're going to pay $2,500 a year with a $500 deductible.
mm.
So, and I'm paying less than that just to buy the drugs that I'm prescribed. And the $500 deductible would have been for the 2 shots. So there was no point in getting Part D, because I'd end up spending more money with the deductible and the premiums. I'd be spending more money than I'm actually paying for the drugs. And when I got the prescription for lisinopril, the first prescription was 5 milligrams, 30 tablets. They charged me $15. The second prescription, they had doubled the dose to 10 milligrams, but they also gave me 90 pills, 90 tablets, which
3
I didn't
months,
realize.
3 months.
Didn't
yeah.
realize that they had tripled the duration,
Yeah.
and it was only $9. So I thought I was going to get a month's supply. And I go, so all right, so I was paying $15 for the 5 milligrams, is probably going to be $25. No, it was $9. I said, it's less money than it was for the First,
Maybe they use a generic version of it.
no, it's made by the same company. So then I got home. And I looked on the fine print because first of all, when I opened the bottle, I said, "This looks like more than 30 in here." So then I looked on the label and said, "Count 90."
Yeah, 3 months.
And I go, so I did the basic arithmetic for how much you would pay per pill on the per milligram on the 5 milligram, and how much you pay for. And I go, I think they should have charged me 90 and they made a decimal point error. I think it should have been $90 and they charged me $9 for the 90-day supply of 10 milligrams. And I don't know that for sure, because then I went on web and I said, how much does a pharmacy charge for lisinopril? And they didn't break it down by the size of the tablet. They just said, oh, it's about $15 for a prescription. I said, what size? Because it comes in 5, 10, 15, and 20 milligram sizes. They don't. So I couldn't figure out, except I guessed that if you count the total number of milligrams in prescription, that if it had been the same rate per milligram, it would have been 90. I think they made a decimal point error.
I don't think so. I think it's more like the first time you buy something. So like when you ship something, the first pound is a lot more expensive than the second pound.
I mean, as far as the pharmacy is concerned, it's a pretty common drug, lisinopril. A lot of people take it.
Yeah.
So I figured either the 10 milligram size is more common, is cheaper, because it's more, because the 5 milligram is actually a small pill.
Right. It's more difficult to do.
Most people take the larger dose.
Right.
So it's possible that they charge more for the small pill because
harder to make, or less, like you say, less popular. Yeah.
Yeah, there's less demand for it. So it's quite possible that the 5 milligram pills do cost more because the volume is less to manufacture them.
Yeah.
But I on the basis of just total number of milligrams, I thought at that rate it should have been 90 and it was 9.
Right.
So
that's good. Well, now you got a good deal.
So either it really is a lot cheaper than I thought it was going to be, or a mistake.
You're taking 3 drugs. You're taking 3 drugs right now for blood pressure, right?
2. I'm taking lisinopril, amlodipine for the blood pressure. I'm taking iron to help build up my hemoglobin, and I'm taking tamsulosin or Flomax for peeing.
Yeah, right.
And then I'm taking the Centrum, which is,
I told you to take that one. Yeah,
so I'm taking Centrum at the same time.
Yeah,
but 2 of them. So one's a calcium channel blocker and one's an ACE inhibitor.
ACE inhibitor, yeah.
And I don't really know enough to explain what an ACE inhibitor is, except it's different than the calcium blocker. And so my blood pressure has come down to like 155 range. But it's,
you need to bring it down below 1. Ideally, get it down to 130, but I'm not sure what your doctor says.
My PCP says she wants me to get it down to below 140, which is like 135.
130, 135 is good, yeah.
But so I've been on it now for, well, how long? Let's see if I can remember how long it's been.
2 months.
I went in the hospital September 20th.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, 2 months ago.
September 20th, and it's now November 11th.
Yeah, 2 months.
So we're talking about a month and a half.
Yeah.
So I've been on some of these drugs for a month and a half. The lisinopril is the newest one, so that's start till later. And the question is, and I have a 90-day supply, so see if after, by the end of the year, does it get below 140 or does it stay in the 155 range indefinitely? At which point she might increase the dose even higher, because I know that they sell it in the 20 milligram size.
Right. So you probably don't need to go there. I may actually take another mirror in your blood. Potassium. How's the potassium level in your blood?
I'd have to look on the chart, because I mean I do have the
normal. I mean you don't have potassium deficiency, right?
As far as I know, I don't. I mean, the things that they had flagged, because you see the little red.
Yeah, yeah.
So the only red flags were the kidney function and the high blood pressure. And turns out the kidney function was just a notch above the red flag. And when I went to see my urologist for my first visit, and they took another urine sample, and he analyzed it, and he says, your urine's fine. There's nothing wrong with your urine. There's
Okay.
the amount of albumin in your urine is a few percent,
Right,
above the upper limit, but he says it's nothing.
right, right. I don't know. I've been taking blood pressure pill for almost 30 years myself. I have blood pressure, so I know a lot about blood pressure. So there are two mirrors that in my body that usually get attention. One is magnesium, which I buy, fruit that have put magnesium on it, and the other one is potassium, which I take banana. I take eating bananas every day to
Well,
compensate.
yeah. So because I don't go to the grocery store every week, when I buy bananas, they last about a week, and then I have a period where I don't have bananas. So I'm eating bananas about half the time.
Okay.
When I have them fresh on hand.
Right.
But then I'm taking the Centrum.
Yeah, they take care of potassium.
So I don't think my potassium, and I saw for chronic kidney, they're trying 500 and 1,000 milligrams of magnesium. I thought that's huge.
Yeah, yeah.
That's for, but that's experimental because they haven't been able to prove that a massive dose of magnesium is good for solving chronic kidney disease.
I don't think you have magnesium problem because I've noticed that when I've had low magnesium, I get tired.
Well, the other night I went, the thing is nothing's happening. So I will go to bed early because nothing's happening. And I can't remember what night it was. Might have been Thursday night. Or maybe Friday night, that I basically was in bed for 12 hours. Not that I'm sleeping soundly for 12 hours.
You just
I went in the bedroom and I'm, 12 hours later, I get up and I go, all right, I'm getting plenty of sleep time, maybe not deep sleep,
Right.
but
But that's not good for you. That's not good for you. You know that, right?
To get too many hours in bed.
Yeah, it mess you up. Yeah.
Well, the problem is if I fall asleep early, like 7 o'clock, I'll wake up at midnight.
Right.
Then I'll be awake.
Yeah, I mean, it happens once in a while. It's okay, but it's not. You don't do it habitually. That's all.
Yeah. What I need to do is sort of figure out how to fill up my daily activity.
Right.
So that I don't end up with getting bored with nothing to do early in the evening.
Right.
And so I don't have enough engaging activity that sort of keeps me focused on something.
I have too much.
Well, I mean, I can do fix-it jobs. I sort of run out of the only fix-it jobs left to do are sort of beyond my ken.
Right.
I've got some power supplies that have some bad capacitors in them, but I don't have the faculty of neurosurgery on motherboards to do that.
Yeah, I noticed that you like kinesthetic action motion version of the task more than the mental one.
Well, yeah, I mean, I used to do puzzles and things.
Right.
And as I age, my cognitive function declines. I don't find as much motivation to do hard thinking, recreational thinking problems.
Right.
And I don't have a good enough vision and motor control to do fine soldering jobs. I mean, especially I don't have good, you basically have to wear jeweler's loops or something to see what you're doing if you're going to do soldering on motherboards.
Mm-hmm. You can start to refurbish some ancient watches.
I have a bull of a wind-up watch that was my father's, and it doesn't need refurbishing.
I take it apart and polishing it out and put it back. How's that work?
Yeah.
That may be. I mean, for me, watches is always fascinating and it require a lot of attention. We have a funny saying in Malay language, which is that if you let a rat fix the watch, you make it worse.
Rat?
Yeah, that's how we say it. Don't ever let the rat fix your watch, is what we say.
Yeah. So I tell you the truth, most of the fix-it jobs that I take on at the fix-it shop are the trivial ones, table lamps,
Right,
or the jobs that are sort of banal and don't require any.
right,
But here's the funny thing: you take a job that you think is going to be trivial,
right,
but it's an old item, so it's more than 20 years old.
right,
And it turns out that, all right, so there's a broken part that's banal,
right.
but they changed the form factors of these parts so that
Yeah.
the old version of it is no longer manufactured, even though
That's right.
so the phenolic shell of
Right.
of electrical socket looks
Right.
normal, except no, this is a 1/4 inch, and they don't make 1/4 inch anymore. They only make
Right.
8 inches now.
Yeah.
So I go to the local lighting supply company, and there's a little electric shop right where I live, and they have everything. And I walk in, I say, I need a bulb for a desk lamp, and I need a phenolic shell for a socket. And he hasn't got either. The phenolic shell is 1/4 inch instead of 1/8 inch, and nobody makes 1/4 inch anymore, and he doesn't have them. And the bulb, turns out the desk lamp is not a 110-volt desk lamp. It plugs into your USB, so it's powered by 5 volts.
Wow.
It has a bulb which looks like an ordinary Edison 110-volt bulb, but it's not. It's a 5-volt bulb.
Wow.
And I go, I've never seen a 5-volt bulb with a standard Edison base.
Right.
And I take it into the guy and I said, look at this bulb. It's 5 volts DC. The lamp is powered by 5 volts USB, and the bulb's burned out. I can tell it's burned out.
It's not LED.
He says, I have never seen one of those ever.
Wow.
And he can't find them in the catalog. So I go online. There's one manufacturer who makes that bulb.
Wow.
And there's one vendor who sells it for the manufacturer, Amazon.
Wow.
There's one Amazon vendor who makes this 5-volt desk lamp bulb, and they want $11 for one and $18 for a pair.
Wow.
And I call up the customer and I say, you've got one burned out bulb, and it's going to cost you $11 for one or $18. She says, yeah, I know. She says, I tried to buy them once before. Go ahead and we'll spend $19 to get 2 of them from this one manufacturer. And Amazon, of course, they jack up.
Yeah. 18%, 25%. Yeah.
So, and the deal is that if the manufacturer is using Amazon as the vendor, then the manufacturer cannot have anybody else offer.
Sound cheaper. Yeah.
It has to be only Amazon. If they try to sell them directly, the Amazon will not let them use Amazon.
Yeah. There's a lawsuit going on that with government. Anyway, I need to get going. I have another thing that's coming at 9 o'clock.
All right,
Joshua,
let's see if
happening with
Joshua
him.
wants to have a conversation. Otherwise, I will end the session. Good chatting with you.
Okay, Barry. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
You guys later.
Okay.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Joshua, it's just you and me. Do you have anything you want to chat about?
I don't know. I'm not really in the chatty space at the moment, but
And it's
how
early.
about yourself? Is there anything
Well, I
you
mean,
wanted to chat about?
You heard me chatting with Sam there for
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, same old, just new stuff. Did you get the new stuff on ChatGPT? Did you watch that conference?
I haven't watched a conference. Was there a conference I was supposed to watch?
I don't know. They just announced all the new features for how to train your own GPT and GPT Turbo. And
I think I've seen some headlines about build your own. I saw a headline yesterday or today about build your own. And the only one I knew that you could take if you have a PDF, there is a plugin that says, here, read this PDF, and then let me ask you questions about it. That's the only one I ever looked at.
Okay, they just went kind of commercial. So they had the Microsoft CEO on stage, and they just said, we're going to build a GPT store so you can use the tool to build your own GPT And then if other people like it or want it, we can put it in a store and charge people to use yours, like a plugin store kind of thing. But it's not a plugin.
You have to run it on your own local hardware, or do you run it on cloud hardware?
You run it on their cloud hardware. It's
Oh,
an
because
interesting idea.
yeah, because I certainly don't have GPT processors that are powerful enough to run things locally here in the house.
Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around there when they say build your own GPT, if they just mean it's taking on the persona of something you're giving it, and then
I think that
Sort
means
of.
that you use your own training data. You train it on your own corpus of writings.
right, but how do they know if that's copywritten to you, you know?
No, you basically say, here's the corpus that I want, whether you wrote it or not. And you basically, it's trained on your own corpus instead of the Common Crawl and Wikipedia, whatever everything's normally trained on.
So you could upload a book
Yeah.
to the. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, basically. So for example, if you've published peer-reviewed literature, but it's arcane, so it's not in the Common Crawl, you could say,
So basically, you could put all your works from all your blogs up there
right.
and say, talk to Barry GPT.
Right.
And then people could.
So theoretically, I could give it the links to half a dozen of my websites, my blog and websites, and say, digest all of this stuff that I've been writing for 35 or 40 years. But I don't really know that. I'm not sure that. First of all, if you have to pay for it, it certainly wouldn't be cost effective. And even if it were cost effective, I'm not sure there would be any point to it.
I don't know. I think it's to me, it's kind of like when the App Store first came out and all these weird apps started being created. I don't know if you know about the iPhone old days in 2008, 2009.
Now I only have an iPhone that Sam Chan sent me just a month ago.
There were some really, really creative apps that came out like in the beginning of the iPhone, like super creative, super amazing. And people were sort of, being a little bit more liberal with what they could do. Like, just let's see if we can make, like, I remember my friend created a parking app for New York. So he just said, let me see if I can take pictures of all of the streets and all the street signs and use the GPS to let the app tell you if there's a parking space available somewhere in New York.
But how would know that they're vacant currently?
That's the interesting thing. How do you do that? So that's what I'm saying. It's like
You know where the parking spots are, but you don't know if they're filled or not currently.
That's the interesting thing is how do you do that?
Don't.
So it'd be a GPS type of thing. You'd have to put some.
The parking meter itself would have to indicate that it's violated or unviolated. Did you just freeze? I'm not sure you're still there. Your video froze. Your audio's not doing anything. No, you're back.
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to go outside and talk to you, so I got a cup of coffee. So let's see how cold it is outside now.
Yeah,
it's getting down to 30.
Yeah, let me see what the temperature is here. It is 44 degrees here today.
I think it might be about 40. It should be like 47. Let me see. Okay, Google, what's the temperature outside? Ooh, it's warm. It's 51. Let's go. All right.
Now, on the other hand, my iWatch says it's 47 degrees and Google News says it's 44 degrees. I don't know which one to believe.
They're probably both right.
Well, the thing is that the temperature can vary plus and minus 2 or 3 degrees just within, the local town where I live. So,
exactly. Do you have it set for Boston or do you have it set for
It's set for
exactly your town?
Well, so the one on Google News is set for Bedford. And actually, I don't really know. The one on the iWatch, I'm not even sure if I know if I even have the option of setting it. Maybe I do. But it's probably set to a different source. Because there's a small airport here. Actually, it's an Air Force base, but they've got a weather station there. And then there's other weather stations around Bedford. There's these sort of amateur weather stations that are on the network.
And yours is set for Bedford, and you're in which town? You're in
Bedford.
Oh, you're in Bedford.
Bedford is adjacent to Lexington and Concord, which everybody knows about. Bedford is kind of obscure because in colonial.
I remember growing up, people would say, "Where you from?" You say, "I'm from Bedford." I'm like, "Medford? No, Bedford. Medford."
There's also Bedford Falls, which is on the other end of the eastern Massachusetts, but Bedford and Bedford Falls are nowhere near each other.
Is there a Bedford Falls?
Yeah, Bedford Falls is down closer to the Cape.
Isn't that the town in the movie It's a Wonderful Life?
I don't know the name of the town. It's a Wonderful Life.
Bedford Falls. I'm trying to remember the name of that town. I would
I'll look it up. Ask Google. Ask OK Google. It'll tell you.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll just ask Chat GPT. The other thing is the Grok came out, the AI from XAI, Twitter's trained model.
Is Grok the name of another LLM?
It's the name of the LLM. They did it really quick in the last 3 months. It's trained on Twitter's data in real time.
Oh, it's Elon Musk's crazy thing. I don't trust anything Elon does.
Why do people start? Everyone hates Elon Musk all of a sudden.
Well, because he's crazy.
Why is he crazy? He's the most sane person I've ever heard speak in my life.
Well, maybe in the old days, but not lately.
No, the media paints him as crazy, but when you listen to him lately, he's the most sane person.
Oh, well, actually, I haven't listened to him lately at all. So,
yeah, he just did an interview with Lex Friedman.
Oh, he did.
And he was making some really salient points about history and war. And he was saying he read as much books about conflicts and wars that he could that were documented throughout history in order to understand how they solved the conflict.
Most of them don't get solved. They just end up killing people to the rate at which people get sick of the killing, and then they stop fighting.
I don't know. I haven't read all the books that he read. I think that could be true for more than 50%.
I mean,
might be right.
Tulsa wrote a book called War and Peace, which I haven't read, but there's plenty of history of war and peace going back since the dawn of recorded history, 5,000-6,000 years.
Well, I think it's interesting when the wars are technically over, where the fighting stops, the killing has stopped. How you govern and divide up land, like think of the 2000, was it 2010 or 2009, the Arab Spring in Egypt?
Oh yeah, nothing happened.
So how did they set up a government? I'm not asking the question. I'm just saying it proverbially, like how they set up that government and how the different factions came in and said, we want to rule and govern, is really interesting. And how power vacuums are created after wars, and how the people that, were just fighting are now being governed by those people. It's really, I think he's smart to set that up, because in doing business with all these different companies he has, you need to know how there's probably wars and conflicts in every day in so many different departments.
I think there's 55 wars currently in progress. Most of them we never heard of. You have the 3 big ones, or 2 or 3 big ones, but I think there's about 50 wars in progress around the world of different sizes all the time.
Are there 50 right now, you would think?
A friend of mine said that there's 55 listed wars in progress, most of which you probably never heard of because they're small skirmishes. But I mean, you got the big ones. You got Ukraine, you got Middle East, you got the House of Representatives, which is basically a war.
What about, is Croatia? I heard something's going on over there.
Yeah, oh, Azerbaijan. Yeah, there's Turkey. I mean, if you make a list, you can see which ones are shedding blood and which ones are political wars without bloodshed.
What would constitute a political war?
Where you're failing to agree on how to govern the country, so your government's dysfunctional, but you're not shedding blood over it.
So kind of like if we couldn't keep our government open, like would that be a war if they didn't pay the?
Well,
What is it, every couple of years?
For example, January 6th was bloodshed. Up until January 6th, there really wasn't that much violence. But then when you start, having violence as a way to
Violence in the government? There was tons of violence in America, just not in the government itself. Or
well, the violence was state-sponsored violence under the color of law. So you had the police being violent against the blacks and minorities, or the violence against the immigrants, and some kinds of violence like not providing food and shelter, depriving people of things which they have a right to. That's violence, even though you're not actually drawing blood. It's still considered violence.
and that would be considered a war, or what constitutes a war is what I'm saying.
Oh, I don't know. I think it depends on who you ask. But
These are good questions actually to ask Grok, because Grok is going to search through those Twitter feeds where everyone has an opinion on every single subject. Like, isn't that what Twitter is? Everyone's just commenting on news subjects that people bring up.
well, I mean, so you can have conflicts which are conflicts of opinion and belief, where people will argue. I mean, an argument can turn into verbal abuse, and verbal abuse can be traumatizing, psychologically traumatizing, even though you don't draw blood. You don't have to draw blood to hurt people. You can deprive them of their livelihood, which is what a lot of conflict is, depriving people of their livelihood without.
That's a good point.
Say what?
I think that's a wonderful point, because the cancel culture is exactly that. It's okay, we don't like what your opinion is, so we're going to tell everyone that you should not be trusted or talked to, much like they're doing with Elon Musk. Like, you're hearing everything that he's crazy. And if he kept on that trope of, like, he messes around, meaning he say crazy things just to see if the media will pick it up and call him crazy.
Well, if you say crazy things, I mean, what is it? You are what you eat. Yeah, I mean, people will say outrageous things just to get a rise out of people. But if you have a practice of saying crazy things, and don't be surprised if people think you're crazy, because it is crazy to be saying crazy things.
He's admitted that he is was it Asperger's? I think he has.
Oh, I'm pretty sure he is.
Yeah, so I'm saying it comes off crazy to those who don't understand. Like, if I walked around going hot dog, hot dog, hot dog, hot dog, and everyone was like, this guy's crazy, and then they find out I have like a Tourette's syndrome where I say hot dog, and they're like, wait, it's actually a medical condition. He just says hot dog. That's his tick.
The question is, well, whether it's under your ability to regulate it or whether it's unregulatable. So, for example, you might know that you have a neurological disorder that can be regulated if you take some drug, take your meds, and you decline to take your meds because you feel blah, and you don't want to feel blah, so you intentionally don't take your meds, and now you're off the wall and driving people nuts with your shenanigans.
That's the diagnosis. That's the way society is set up, for sure.
I mean, look at Trump. Trump knows that he can't legally he can't win, so he's turning the whole thing into a circus. And he's, he says all these outrageous things, and he's trying to provoke the judge, because if he can successfully provoke the judge, he might get a basis for overturning the conviction that's almost for sure. So if you can disrupt the process in such a way that you cause the other guy to make a mistake, then use the other guy's mistake to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very common practice, to provoke the other guy, provoke your opponent into making a mistake, and then using their mistake as the way to nullify the whole thing.
That's the game of chess.
Yeah. And that's a well-known tactic. It's probably unethical, but it's the stuff of Saturday morning cartoons. Saturday morning cartoons is all about getting the other guy to screw up.
Mm-hmm. I watch basketball at a very high level because I played the sport.
Yeah.
So the way that the game is built on, mostly it's called a screen. So you want to have your other player position himself in front of your defender, so you can, it's like bowling pins. You want to knock your defender into the other person on your team. But where you go after that moment, the minute that physics occurs, where the guy's standing here, this guy's guarding a person over here, and the minute he knocks here, if this guy decides to go this way, he's going to start rolling under or over the guy. So it's an over-under thing.
Yeah, you're gaming the system. You're basically engaged in a practice which is really not sportsmanlike, but also technically not a penalty, or not going to be called as a penalty, so you can draw the other guy into a penalty.
Well, here's the interesting thing about that sport is if your feet are planted for the right position at the right moment, it's legal. If you move your feet, it's illegal screen. Yeah. So there's a legal screen and an illegal screen that they'll call the whistle on you.
Yeah, it's like dribbling. You've got to be either moving your feet or not moving your feet. Forget which, but there's some crazy rule in basketball about moving and dribbling.
Yeah, the dribbling is you can move your feet as long as the ball is not, you're not holding it in your hand.
Yeah, if your feet are moving, you have to be dribbling. You can't run holding the ball. So if you're moving your feet, you must also be dribbling. So
the minute you pick up the dribble, you get technically 2 steps, but that's the interesting thing about that sport is that 2 steps is very liberal. It's you can sort of take a half a step, then 2 steps.
Right.
And they used to call that traveling, but then European players started taking those 2 steps very slowly.
Yeah.
So they call it a Euro step.
Yeah. So the thing is that it must drive referees crazy, because you find these intermediate practices which are neither fish nor fowl, and how you're going to call. And that's the whole thing about games, is you end up gaming the system.
I got really angry somewhere around the 90s. They started doing these gaming the system moves in the sport that when I was a kid, they would call it as illegal. And I'm playing on the black, outside with no refs. When you have no referees, you have to call your own fouls and your own stuff. So I would tell them, hey, that's illegal. That's double dribble. And they go, no, it's not. You can do this.
Yeah, and then you end up basically arguing over the rules and how you judge the rules, and you get chaos because it's not clear.
The protocol that we use on the blacktop to solve that, if you start arguing with someone, is they say shoot for it. So you got to go to the 3-point line, shoot a basket. If you make it, then the rule's called your way. If you don't make it, that's how you end those conflicts quickly, is that you're arguing, and someone just says, just shoot for it. Just stop arguing.
So you make up a new rule, a meta rule that wasn't part of the rules of the game. And so
exactly.
As soon as you have the option of making local rules, then the question is, at what point are you metagaming the system by making weird local rules? You end up playing some pseudo game that's not a regulation game. But
Yeah,
what you end up with is chaos. You end up with some form of chaos where it's not predictable.
yeah, I think if there was the possibility of creating those new rules, like imagine if you're on the floor of the Senate and you're having an argument about a vote for a bill, and then the two top majority leaders say, okay, let's arm wrestle.
Exactly. Look at Tommy Tuberville. They had this rule that one member of the House could block a vote just for no good reason except that he has that power. And as a result, he then applied that 433 times and blocked all the votes for approving promotions in the military. And so now there's not enough people in the military who are officially promoted to their leadership roles. And now the Republicans are trying to figure out how to change the rule that disallows Tommy Tuberville from doing what he's doing. And you I don't know if you're following the story, but
No, I listen to you guys talk about politics and it makes me want to throw up.
well,
But
yes.
In other words, to me, it's like, how is it that a few people can manipulate those rules? Like, shouldn't they put a vote to your state? Like, if you're a state senator, shouldn't they have the state vote on it?
Well, this is in the House. This is federal.
Okay.
Because the federal military has got to be voted. If you vote somebody to become the new lieutenant general of some division, it has to be approved by Congress.
But isn't the House of Representatives done by counties or by population in certain areas of the state?
Well, so Tommy Tuberville's congressional district, the voters could say, well, he's not representing our interests with this abortion. The reason he's doing it is because the military adopted a policy that if you're a female in the military and you need an abortion and you happen to be in a state that doesn't have abortions, the military can pay for you to go to the adjacent state where you can get your abortion. And Tuberville says, I don't like that policy, and I'm going to block all progress and promotions in the military until they change that policy. Well, they don't change the policy, and as a result, he's locked up 400 and some odd promotions that can't be approved by the Congress. And now the Republicans want to sort of take that ability away from him over this abortion policy. It's not whether you can have an abortion, it's whether you can send somebody to a place where it's legal to do you want to smoke pot, go to California, it's legal there. You want to smoke pot, don't go to Utah, it's illegal there.
Yeah.
You want to gamble, go to Nevada, it's legal there, So.
Right. That's what I'm trying to say is the way that the laws are enacted, there's rules. Like when I was looking into this, there's a comment period. So there's a time where you're supposed to hold town halls and get comments on a bill or on, and I don't think it's called a bill, but on like before it becomes a bill.
Right.
So that process, they sort of manipulated both the voter areas, so the gerrymandering, and then they manipulated the ability for the common people to get the news about the prospective bill in order to comment on it.
Yeah, they basically rat fuck the whole process. And
the
fact that you can rat fuck the political process in a way that is not inherently illegal, it's just,
that's why it was so interesting when I was in the Occupy movement. These, political historians and legal kind of scholars or people that are just really interested in that would just show up at our meetings and say, did you know that this is legal? We can hold a congressional Congress by the people. You don't have to have the Senate to call it. And I said, wait a second, that can't be a law. Let's look that up. And it's sure enough, sometimes they were right. Some of these people had the right idea, but it would take a certain majority of people to call that and to go through these, bureaucracies and red tape and to get enough people to know to do that, to actually like,
There's so many ways to game the system, to find some law that was passed 150 years ago that nobody even knows about anymore, and activate some law that's doesn't, it's obsolescent. I mean, there's all kinds of ways of gaming the system, and they're becoming very creative about gaming the system, and they're basically just turning the political process into a dysfunctional process so that it can function. And the thing is, if you do that enough, then government fails. The whole government system fails. It happens in a lot of countries. Look at how many countries have failed governments.
I've seen countries where they fight in the parliament or in their government structure, like physical fights.
It happened in the U.S. Congress historically. You can find stories of fist fights.
Yeah.
And they're not terribly common, but they're in the, there's records of fist fights.
Yeah, I'm really interested in like we were talking about, what would you create with a GPT? You could upload these things to a GPT and then put that out, in a little campaign on the internet. Hey, go talk to this GPT and it will tell you how to overthrow your government.
Yeah, I mean, the colonists overthrew the British rule in the Revolutionary War. The Confederates tried to overthrow the federal government in the Civil War. It happens all the time.
Yeah, excuse me, I'm just answering a message from Cusella. She's down in LA with the kid, so I'm just
Take your time.
thank you. Thank you, Barry. Yeah, I'm just really interested in what can be done with communication and with, the idea that, like, I'm looking at there's a gentleman named Vivek Ramaswamy that's running on the Republican side for.
Yeah, he's a businessman, and he's
a really interesting character because he's sort of full of himself and his ego is driving his campaign.
Yeah, he's the oddball. He's sort of the odd character in the mix there.
He's the one that has no political experience.
Yeah, like the new House of Representatives speaker.
Yeah, like I remember when Pete Buttigieg ran the last election cycle. He was the mayor of some town that he didn't really live in or wasn't really there for long. Like he didn't have a long history as the mayor of the town. He had no real track record, but they were trying to pretend he did.
Robert Kennedy moved to New York and became senator.
Robert Kennedy
Sr. Remember when after the Kennedy administration and the Kennedys all lived in Massachusetts, he moved to New York, established residency, and then ran for Senate, became a senator from the state of New York. But
so Hillary Clinton just took a page out of his book.
Yeah, I think she did the same thing. She, the thing is, you can move from one state to another, not the state that you grew up in, and then once you're a resident, if it's legal, you can run for office and run on your reputation as a human and not as a resident.
Yeah, and technically residency means you just buy a house and register as an owner of that house.
Mitt Romney, who's from Utah, moved to Massachusetts, became the governor of Massachusetts, then he moved back to Utah, became a senator from Utah.
I never understood. I remember one day just going, who's the governor of Massachusetts? And they said this guy, Mitt Romney, and he
just locked up. See if you come back. Waiting. Oh, I heard you come back.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay.
His father, George Romney, was the head of, was it Chrysler Corporation? I think it was.
I never followed Romney's status. I was just only turned on to him when he ran against Obama in his second term.
Yeah, so he moved to Massachusetts, became the governor. Then he moved back to Utah and became the senator from Utah. So he was governor of Massachusetts and senator from Utah.
Wow, I didn't know that. I was wondering how that he's still in government after he ran.
Yeah, I mean, I think he owned Staples. I believe he had a financial interest, if not co-owner. I think his family business was ownership of the Staples business store. You can look that up. I'm doing this from memory, but so he was governor here and then senator from. They went back to Utah. Well, he started off. There was that crisis in the Olympics. There was a scandal in the Olympics. He went back to handle the scandal in the Olympics. So between the scandal in the Olympics, governor of Massachusetts, senator from Utah, and third party candidate. I mean, he's in, a public figure of some repute. He flirted with becoming a member of the Trump administration, and that decided he didn't want to do that, but he was close to but he didn't want to pledge loyalty to Trump, which he had to do to get into the Trump administration. So and then he was the one Republican who voted against Trump in the two impeachment hearings. He voted against Trump, voted to convict him.
Yeah, he wasn't a big fan. I remember
he basically came to understand that Trump was a no good Nick. He was a crook, and didn't.
I think everyone understood he was a crook. He was it's a different shade of crook compared to the other crooks in government.
He has no business being in government. So Romney basically put thumbs down to Trump and didn't go into his administration and ran independently in the primary. And I'm not sure why he did not stay in the Senate. I forget. I'm not sure what led him to depart the Senate, but politics is a strange game. Are you frozen again?
Yeah, but is it like? No, I unfroze. I took it off. By the way, I bought a mount to put my satellite at the top of the house, and it just came in the mail on Friday.
And you can do this without your landlord complaining or something? Oops. Are you still there? Did we lose you? You're muted now. I got a picture, but you're muted.
Kick me out and put me back on, so I should be good at this point.
Didn't you say before that your landlord wouldn't let you put anything on the roof?
I didn't ask, but there's already a bunch of satellites on the roof. There's 2 already.
Oh, dishes.
There's a direct TV satellite. Yeah, here. Let me show you. That's what do we how do I flip this around here? There we go. So there's one here, and then if you see above it, I can't go. There we go. You go.
See one on the ground.
2 satellites.
Is that one on the ground? No, that's a chair.
Yeah, see that's off the side of the house.
Okay, but I'm seeing
that's a chair.
That's just a chair, not a satellite. Oh yeah, I see the one by the gable. I see
look over
one to the right of the gable, and I don't see the other one yet.
Yep, and then one down here. It's in
between. I see it on the side of the
smaller
house.
one. It's just
So you're going to put another one up there by that gable?
I'm going to put one at the top on the actual ridge line of the roof.
Okay.
So I got a from the Starlink company. They make a thing called Ridge Mount.
Oh.
And I was going to build it myself. All it is just lapping over a triangle with weights on this side and weights on this side.
So does it physically mount, or is it just held on by gravity?
Just gravity.
And you don't even have to put guy wires down to keep it from, wow, it's that heavy that it's not going to blow off.
I don't know because it's each weight is 13 pounds, so it's 26 pounds on one side and 26 on the other.
Yeah, and what's the cross section? What's the wind cross section is going to be picking up the wind shear? Is it a relatively?
The cross section pretty. Yeah, the have you seen a Starlink satellite?
I don't know, but I don't know.
Have you seen them?
I don't know what the aperture is. Is it pretty small?
Pretty small.
Okay, if
Yeah.
it's small, then you don't have to worry about it picking up a lot of wind. It's not a sail. It's not a great big sail.
Yeah. No, it's a little square flat. They call it a Dishy McFlatface is the name of it.
Because in the old days, you know, you had these great big dishes that were, you know, multiple feet across, and they had a lot of wind. You know, they would pick up a lot of wind, but these little guys are not going to pick up any wind.
I think it might. I mean, I decided to get the mount from the company, so if it does fall off, I'm gonna ask if I can get a new dish.
Well, can you tether it so that if it blows off, it doesn't roll off the top? It is tethered so it can't roll away. Well, it'll be tethered. Won't it be tethered by the cable anyway? You still have to have a coaxial cable coming from it.
Yeah, the cable won't stop it from rolling away because I would have to screw that into something into the house.
Well, what you do is you would tether the cable so that the cable can't just roll with it. You'd have to tether the cable. Do you have a chimney on the top of the house, or any kind of a vent? There's going to be
there is a vent on the.
You can use
there's a vent on the right side.
Yeah, you can use the vent and or the chimney to tether the whole thing so that if it does blow away, it can't roll very far.
Yeah, I don't have a chimney like like a brick chimney. I've got just a pipe.
What do you have? Electric heat and no fossil fuel heating?
No, we've got a wood stove, but it's just got a metal pipe coming off of it.
Right. But if you have a vent going through the roof, then you can use that to tether. Just put a rope and tether it so that it can't roll more than some short distance.
Yeah, the way it's designed, it can't roll. It'll be fine. I looked at the physics. It's good.
All right. So when is that going to get? You going to do that this week or next week?
Well, I wanted to do it today. Actually, I'm up here by myself, so if I fell off the roof, no one would know for a couple days.
I would not do it until Cusilla's back or your neighbors around.
Yeah, that's what we decided. I'm waiting for her to get back.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Especially if we're going up all the way to the gable, to the ridge.
Yeah, it's pretty high up.
Yeah, and then also getting on and off the ladder. That's the dangerous passage.
Yeah, I think I can climb out one of the windows. Actually, there's a little roof below the roof, so I think I can. I was thinking I have a ladder, but I was thinking just climb out the window just so I can get the weights up there easier.
Well, yes, you can certainly position the weights out the window, even if your body won't fit. The weights will. So
exactly, that's what I'm gonna get the dish and the weights and the mount and put it there, and then
and take the
just
ladder.
Go climb.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But you don't want.
But it'll be interesting to see if it changes. It should, from what I can see, I don't see any obstructions from that angle from down here. Until I get up on the roof, I won't know if there's any obstructions.
Yeah, it's probably hard to do the geometry from the ground.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated with the Starlink company because just I would love to know how the actual signal is being beamed and how they're switching from satellite to satellite as it comes through and how it picks it up, because the more they put up, the more solid the network should be, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's bidirectional, right? You're sending signal to the satellite and the satellite's sending signal to you. So it can.
But if the satellite's moving, once it's passed over the horizon, and then also it's usually just facing one area. It doesn't move around all day long. It only moves once. So
It's a but you have a steerable antenna, so I mean it's electrically steerable within some angle.
yeah, and you have to tell it when you get your Starlink, it's geo-positioned to your location. So if you want to move it, you have to pay for a different service.
Well, what plus or minus what? So from the ground to the roof is still the same position?
Plus, you mean the elevation?
Well, not just the elevation. I mean, you've got a lateral distance of a few tens of meters and a vertical position of a few tens of meters. How many decimal places does it count before it's considered moved?
That's a good question. Meaning, if a quarter of a mile, 20 feet, you're saying?
Yeah, well, I mean, how big is your property? Couple acres?
This property's tiny.
Oh, less than an
The
acre.
place where we're renting.
Well, if
It's
it's
not. I would say it's not less than an acre.
well, if it's less than an acre, then it's probably because geolocation. I mean, your GPS in your car can recognize what lane you're in. That's 10 feet.
Right.
So geopositioning has decimal places down to plus or minus about 10 feet. And your property's bigger than 10 feet across. Obviously, it's 100.
Yeah, I should play with it one day. Just take it down the street to the bottom of the road and see if I can get a signal.
Yeah.
That's some people unlock if you that's the question I have with just the physics. If you unlock it and you're in a car driving around, how does it know to let it keep going?
It probably won't work in a car. Isn't it designed for a fixed location?
I've seen a test where these two guys in Massachusetts strapped it to their truck and drove around.
How far?
I don't know.
More than a mile?
Oh, more than a mile for sure.
Well, if you can move around more than a mile and it still works, then the number of decimal places, like maybe 2-3 decimal places, is all it cares about.
Yeah, I think they unlock it from the company and let it be mobile, so it's picking up.
Well, if they unlocked it from the company, that's a different story.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to figure out the physics of how do you get a signal that's moving from a moving satellite?
It's the same thing as because it's electronically steerable anyway. So as long as I mean, the fact that the satellite's moving is relative. It doesn't matter whether the satellite's moving or the ground station's moving, because the relative motion is what matters.
As long as it's adjusting every time it's I don't know. Yeah, I got you.
That's the whole point of the electronically steerable, is that it's basically zeroing in on the phase shift that optimizes the signal strength. It's just adjusting the phase shift among
yeah I remember when we put the satellite for the first time Google launched a satellite, and it was a stationary satellite, not a moving satellite. So it's in geostationary orbit for
way up there.
Yeah.
And they still drift. They're not, even though they're geostationary, that doesn't mean that they don't drift around the geostationary point.
Right. But the satellite is stationary on your house too, the dish itself going to the satellite.
But okay, so
it's
so it doesn't vary a whole lot, but it might vary a little bit.
It can't vary well. That's the reason why it's a parabolic disc. I think it's to collect the information from. I don't know. I'll look at this. Isn't my field of expertise in terms of. I just was very curious when they were setting up the satellite, how the technician was using his codes on his laptop to call to the satellite to confirm the connection. So first checking the strong signal, then sending the key code, or whatever it is, to say, okay, this is an unlocked dish.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. Have you ever hacked into satellites? That made me want to hack into satellites.
I don't have any technology that lets me talk microwaves. I mean, in the house, you've got you've got Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, but that doesn't count because that's
Right.
that's omnidirectional and short distance. But yeah, no, I have never futzed around with microwaves and parabolic dishes.
That would be interesting to grab. Like, there's these two non-used dishes on the house. If I put that into some computer system that could tell it to receive and pick up the signal, could I technically find satellites that are
Yeah,
geopositioned?
if you have a receiver that you can hook up to the dish, if the dish is just a static dish, and you hook up, you position a receiver and hook it up to electronics, yeah, you can pick up, because you're just picking up radio signals, and you won't be able to decode them because they're going to be encrypted probably, but you can still pick up the raw signal.
Yeah, and then if you could break the encryption.
Well, that's a good luck, because those are, I'm pretty sure that satellites are encrypted at a level that's not trivial to break. But you can still get the carrier. You can get the raw
Well,
carrier.
if the technician has the encryption codes, you just got to break the technician. You don't have to break the code. You just have to use one that they think is licensed.
Yeah, don't ask me about that, because I mean, even your Wi-Fi is encrypted, except for the one that I have unencrypted. I have one unencrypted Wi-Fi in the house.
Yeah, my mom was going nuts. She set up her Starlink and it wasn't working, so she pressed a button that said public, and so it was not encrypting properly for different devices.
Yeah. Yeah, my original Wi-Fi was an open Wi-Fi, and it still exists. I mean, I could turn on encryption. I just don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. There's so many things to do. Like when the Ukraine war started, a bunch of my ham radio friends were picking up the signals. People were broadcasting them live on the internet. The whatever radio signals that the military was using.
Oh yeah,
the public channel.
Yeah, you can go to there's a whole collection of websites that have receivers that are tied in the internet, and you can tune into, well, like shortwave radio. You can pick up shortwave radio from stations all over the planet on a couple of web pages. So, for example, I wanted to get WWV, the time signal, the National Bureau of Standards time signal, which is all the way out in Colorado. And I didn't have a strong enough signal here in the daytime. And so I went on the internet and I picked up WWV, the 5 kilohertz channel, whatever which one it is, just to get the time signals distant for no particular reason. I was picking up all these. You can pick up FM stations in Europe, for example.
Yep.
There's a couple of Latin language radio stations, I think, in Finland. And if you want to listen to a Latin newscast, you can go on the internet and find the station in Finland and listen to the news in Latin. Not that I
in Latin, the language of Latin, or
there's actually a handful of radio stations. One, I think the first one was in Finland, but there's probably more that actually broadcast in Latin.
That's interesting.
Which is tricky because there's so many vocabulary terms which are 20th century technology. Look, words like radio and internet, and helicopter. So there's a lot of words that don't exist in Latin, and you just basically have to do what you do is you transliterate them into Latin, or you
I learned that in the Japanese language. There's so many Western words that they created a subsect of Japanese called katakana to translate, like McDonald. So it sounds very much like English, but it's with the vocabulary of the Japanese language.
Yeah.
So the word for fork is porco.
Yeah. In French, you say weekend, le weekend. You basically borrow
Le
the
weekend.
English word and pronounce it as if you have a French accent. But and then
Is
there,
that true? They don't have a word for weekend in French?
well, you can look it up because they may have added one since then, but this was maybe 10, 15 years ago where the way you said weekend is le weekend. They didn't actually have a word for weekend.
I'm trying to think of the word week and the word end in French, but I can't think of it.
You know, I mean, eventually maybe they make up words, but the French, are very picky about, real French words, and I don't know. So, here we are in this age of, GPS and internet and Bluetooth, and I don't know. I mean, what do? Automobile, Mazda is a Mazda, right? A Mazda in Japan is a Mazda in the US. Even though
Yeah,
Mazda,
proper names you have to. Yeah.
although Mazda, there was an electric bulb company called Mazda. And turns out that Mazda was the name of a god of light in some system, or Persian god of light was called Mazda. And that's why the name Mazda was the name of a light bulb manufacturer, in the early 20th century. My grandfather actually had a bulb in his basement that was a Mazda bulb.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because I remember it was around about the 1950s, and you could buy Mazda bulbs in the 1920s and 30s. And he had one in the basement that was still a Mazda bulb, Mazda brand light bulb.
Yeah, I remember there was a Veritasium episode talking about actual conspiracies, and the example they used was the consortium of light bulb manufacturers in the early 1900s.
Yeah, yeah, designing them so that they would have 5,000 hours or 8,000 hours, and they were designed to burn out after a certain amount of usage. Because you could make bulbs. I mean, one of the reasons that Mazda bulb was still in service in the 1950s is that it wasn't very bright. It was a relatively dim,
Mhm.
but because it was relatively dim, it wasn't very hot. Because it wasn't very hot, the filament lasted forever. It was,
Is that the one that I saw? They still have one working in a fire station somewhere in America?
Yeah, you can look it up. I don't know if it's a Mazda brand or a different brand, but yeah, the early light bulbs, before they sort of optimized the brightness versus the longevity, is that you could have a bulb where the filament was relatively fat and ran at a voltage that was enough to illuminate but not get super bright, and it would last forever. Didn't put out a lot of light, but it lasted forever.
Yeah, I wonder how many different things in history did they innovate and create such a great product that it would push the other industries out of business. So they got a consortium or got to think something and canceled it.
Yeah. I remember when they first came out with permanent press shirts, and the very first permanent press shirt that my mother ever bought for me, she bought two of them, one blue, one brown, but the same pattern. And these shirts lasted forever. You never had to iron them, and they never wore out. Now, eventually, they learned to make permanent press shirts that wore out in 1 year. And then I would end up with, after 1 year, the elbow would wear out. But the very first one that I had bought in the 1950s lasted for 20 years.
Was it a polyester or what? Was it a blend?
Yeah,
What was it made out of?
Yeah, the fabric is polyester, and they were impregnated with this stuff. Besides being polyester, they had something impregnated in them that helped maintain their shape. And I never had to iron this shirt, and it never wore out. And eventually, after 25 years, they wore out. But then I would buy permanent press shirts at Bamberger's, and they'd wear out in 1 year. I stopped buying them because they were designed to wear out. They fall apart.
I think that idea right there is the problem in the world.
Exactly.
is that the planned obsolescence and the idea that, like, same thing with government. There's rules that were designed to never wear out. And if we just kept using those rules, we wouldn't have the problem. Like, it would be self-correcting. There'd be self-correcting protocols.
Well, the rules for the game of chess or checkers never wear out. A chess, you can buy a chess board made out of wood, and it won't wear out, and neither do the rules. You know, you can have a 50-year-old
Yeah.
board that's perfectly good, and the rules are perfectly good.
Well, we could keep building out of megalithic structures. I was just talking to my mom about we belong to this community that bought land years ago, put it in a trust, and they wanted to put markers on the land. So they spent $30,000 for carved boulders so that they would never wear out.
Oh, yeah.
And we thought that was an excessive use of the spending of the capital for the resources. But at the same time, it's a long play. But 30,000, I mean, the cost to chip into solid granite is really expensive, like tombstones and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, in the early days, when you don't really have, the materials engineering calculations, you would over design things because you really didn't know. So you'd over design by a factor of 2 or 3, and they would last forever.
That's like marble countertops. Some people like that.
Yeah, marble or granite countertops, they don't wear out.
Mm-hmm.
Other things wear out. So, you know what wears out?
I wonder if
Handkerchiefs wear out. You cannot
probably
buy these handkerchiefs. You try to go into a men's clothing store and buy a ordinary men's cotton handkerchief. They don't carry them anymore. I don't know where they're supposed to buy them at.
I think only at the fancy suit stores that sell $2,000 suits.
But I don't want a vest pocket handkerchief. I want just a ordinary plain cotton handkerchief, snot rag. And I go into what's the name of the company? TJ Maxx or whatever. They don't carry them.
I'm just trying to think. Do they still? I know there's people that put handkerchiefs on their head.
Well,
Like
that's a kerchief. That's a great big one.
Yeah, a big ass handkerchief.
Yeah, well, but it's called a kerchief, not a handkerchief. It's a kerchief.
Yeah, where did that word kerchief come from? I'm curious. It's
probably Persian or something. I don't know. You can look it up.
It sounds like a Persian word. So something that wraps around your head is a kerchief.
Well, the full-size kerchief, yeah, it's a head covering.
Yeah, and so it's a handkerchief just means handkerchief.
It's the one that's only hand-sized, and it's not.
So technically, when people are saying hanker, it's really handker.
You look at the spelling, it's handkerchief. It's not handkerchief, it's hand. The word.
Yeah, that's something from another era. Like, I see it in those old movies. Every man had a handkerchief.
Yeah, I mean, you wear them,
but
to keep the sun off the top of your head or whatever. I don't know.
Well, people were using them to blow your nose. That was before there were
yes.
Brand
There's also the ones like the Boy Scouts. You had a kerchief that you wore around your collar, and that was it was like wearing a tie, except it's a kerchief instead of a tie. But it was partly to protect yourself from getting sunburned and whatever. But
yeah,
so
and that
there's
you think that went out of fashion because of they realized that they were carrying around diseases, or like, I wonder why they went out of fashion.
Do you ever see Boy Scouts wear the Boy Scout kerchief anymore? Of course, I don't see kids in public school wearing, brownie outfits and Boy Scout outfits and Cub Scouts. They used to go to school, you'd wear your Cub Scout clothing. Maybe they don't do that anymore. I don't know. Yeah, they don't have.
I don't know what the official Boy Scout uniform is anymore.
And I think they allow girls in Boy Scouts now. I'm not really sure what the whole is. It's a crazy deal. When I was a kid, you know,
The-
Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Brownies, Girl Scouts, it was a big deal in Omaha back in the 1950s.
Yeah, now it's just a big, huge, multi-level marketing scam for the girls to sell cookies.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what
It's
happens.
Mary Kay for kids is what I call it.
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's interesting how you know what you just made me think of something. When we say the word culture, we don't break it into the different age groups.
Yeah. Culture
Like
is a funny
this
word.
tropes.
Yeah. A culture is
Yeah.
defined, the word culture is defined as the way we do things around here. That's the definition of culture. The way we do things around here.
So if you think, okay, so culture is the way we do things around here, but the way 14-year-old girl does something versus a 40-year-old woman is going to be different.
Absolutely. It depends on your age and your geographic locale. And it's what makes traveling to the next city over feel different than being in your hometown. Things are different in some subtle but systematic way.
I wonder if someone is going to, just because, you know, we're bored, we're people, we've got all these technologies, if someone's going to create a directory of local cultures throughout all the United States.
The problem is that come in with a narrative which does a fair job of characterizing your culture. That ain't easy to do.
But it's on the internet all over. I mean, you could just sort through all the YouTube videos from that local area.
Oh yes, if you see videos, like if you watch a Western, a classical Hollywood Western, well, you have the saloon, you know, you have the horses and you have the post where they tie up the horses, and you know, you have all these classical elements that you can recognize as a Hollywood Western. And you know, that was,
yeah.
And for all I know, the Hollywood Western isn't exactly what a real Western town looked like in the 1800s. I don't know what they really looked like. I know what they looked like in the Hollywood Westerns. There was a whole culture.
Yeah, there was just a. You're just making me think. There was a podcast I just watched last week on a Western historian, and he was talking about how the native people in the 1700s, the late 1700s, were traveling to France diplomatically and working with the French people in Europe. So they weren't as what's the word, primitive as people read about in history.
The word you're looking for is provincial.
Yeah,
tied to a piece of geography. And so if you go to the province of Quebec versus the province of British Columbia, you can say, oh, I can tell I'm in Quebec. I can tell I'm in British Columbia because there's provincial differences.
Yeah, I'm just saying in the history books we were told is that when Lewis and Clark went over is the first time the natives of that area interacted with Europeans.
Sure.
But that's all completely a lie.
Well, I mean the Pacific coast was populated, but the inland, I mean, to go from the Midwest across the Rockies to the West Coast, there wasn't a whole lot of European population there. I mean, when they did the Lewis and Clark,
there was the Spanish and the French were there before,
but not so much in the Rocky Mountains because there was no place to settle there. On
the other side of the Rocky Mountains.
Oh, sure. Yes, when you get to the Pacific side, no problem because you can get there by ship. But getting across the Rockies on foot, good luck. I mean, that's a haul. And look how long it took them to build the railroads across the Rockies. That was very late in the game before you got able to make a railroad across the Rockies. Promontory Point, Utah, where they finally connected the Union and the Pacific Railroad.
Yeah, but there was, I come from a town called Santa Barbara, which was a Spanish town. And to this day, they hold Spanish days in the summer.
Sure.
And it was completely populated by the Spanish.
Yeah, but it's on the coast. So you can get there by ship.
Mm-hmm.
and where you can't get there by ship, you know, there's like you go up to Alaska or something, and it was, you know.
I'm just saying the way that they portrayed the Native Americans in history is very inaccurate and not true to, like, the idea that the people started going west in 1848 or 1849, the minor 49ers for the gold rush.
I'm not sure
There were
how-
already people there mining gold.
Oh, sure. I mean, the rush was because the report came back that they found the gold, but that was in Sutter's Creek, California. Somebody living in Sutter's Creek found gold. And then people traveled there to be part of it. And there was the Alaskan gold rush too.
Yep. Yeah, the president didn't actually officially say that the gold had been found. It was a rumor for a year in 1848.
Well,
it wasn't official.
Yeah, if you find gold, how do you know that it's indigenous to the area, not just a fluke? You have to show that it wasn't just one piece found once. You have to show that there's a whole vein, and it's not just, you know, very local but distributed. Same with uranium.
Yeah.
When they found the uranium in Nevada or whatever, wherever they found it, and the Geiger counter, and then people started going, you know, mining uranium in the 1950s or wherever it was. They were finding.
I wonder, how do they mine uranium? That's got to be an interesting problem.
The mineral, I forget the name of the mineral that it's in. I'd have to look it up for it's obscure, but there's a mineral that's rich in uranium ore, and but the thing was you needed a Geiger counter because you could pick up the beta rays or whatever they were, alpha rays, whatever. And they found these veins in somewhere in Nevada that had let me ask. I can't believe how I'm losing my vocabulary. What is the name of the ore that contains uranium? Pitch blende. Pitch blende. Your primary
Pitch blende?
uranium ore as a mineral is, well, now they call it uraninite, but it's typically was called pitch blende. And they would find pitch blende, and that was the look for pitch blende, and then you'd mine the pitch blende, and then you have to refine it down to uranium. It's uranium oxide is what it. Pitch blende is uranium oxide.
So are there refineries for that in Nevada to this day?
I don't know where the refineries are. There were mines. I don't know where they refined it.
You would
But
think they would put the refinery close to the mine.
It depends on how much energy it took to do the work. I don't really know. I mean, I guess you can look it up, but they would mine the pitch blende, and then they would refine it down to U-238, and then you had to separate U-238 from U-235, because U-238, which is the major isotope, was not radioactive. It was the U-235, which is, I don't know, a few percent of uranium is U-230, and they had to separate out the U-235 from the U-238 in order to get fissile uranium.
Yeah, and if I remember the history right, it was in the process of separation, you create another element.
It's not in the separation. It was that once you had built a reactor, you could generate plutonium.
That's right.
And other radioactive products could be generated. There was something called a breeder reactor. In a breeder reactor, you would add some isotope of some other element, and then the neutrons would convert it into a radioactive isotope, but I don't remember which element it was now. But you can look up breeder reactor, and but they would generate more fissile isotopes of other elements, of which I think Neptunium might have been one of the ones that they bred, but I don't remember exactly how all that worked.
Yeah, I just remember reading about the nuclear reactors in that reaction process. They did it a specific way so they could get plutonium out to use for nuclear weapons.
Yeah. So you could create plutonium and neptunium in a breeder reactor and other. I don't remember the details. I used to know this 30, 40 years ago, but yeah, you basically would seed the reactor with other elements to convert them into fissible isotopes.
Barry, have you ever been close up to a large oil refinery?
Well, I guess northern New Jersey. If you drove up the New Jersey Turnpike to Newark, you would go past.
Uh-huh.
It would go past those huge refineries in the Newark area. So I guess that's as close as you get to the oil refineries in northern New Jersey. I mean,
Have you been there before?
well, I mean, I lived, Bell Labs was in New Jersey. So if you drove to Newark Airport or to New York City, you would drive up the New Jersey Turnpike and you'd go past the section where the refineries were. I think it's Newark is where the refinery.
Yeah.
There was a big port. There was a big oil port, I think, in
Yeah.
Newark, somewhere around there.
The one I went to was in El Segundo, California. And it had to be at least 60 to 70 acres for this one. It was the biggest machine I've ever seen in real life, like one machine.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you would see is the tanks. All you could really see from the highway was these gigantic cylindrical tanks. And there's also the tank farm that's south of Boston. If you go down Route 93, you can go past a oil tank farm, but those are storage tanks. I don't know.
Right.
I think they're just storage tanks. The ones in Massachusetts that come in from ships. I don't think it's refined there.
I was going to say, I don't know if you're interested, but if you hold up a screen share and look at a picture of the California El Segundo oil refinery, I would love to show it to you just from a system standpoint. It's the biggest thing I've ever seen in physical life of a giant machine.
Segundo oil.
Like I'm gonna have to watch a documentary on how they actually built that because it looks more complicated than any nuclear reactor. It's the most complicated machine I've ever seen in my life, as far as the piping and.
Let's see if I share that screen.
Are you here? Let me. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, if you could share the screen. I was gonna say I could put it up on mine, but
Okay. Which one is it? Or is it this
while
one?
you're doing that, I'm gonna practice just so we can share pictures because we don't do that on Zoom enough.
So this is just the image page. So I got this picture. I could pick any one of these and select them, but which one do you want me to pick?
The one with all the pipes,
This one here?
all the way to the right has the most. Just above that,
Oh, not that one.
one more above,
And we go back again. Let's
not
see.
that one.
Let me go back a notch. This one here.
There we go, right there. Just below that, the one with all the pipes.
That's what I had before.
It's Oh, okay. Can you blow that up big?
This one here, where my mouse is.
Oh, I'm not seeing the same thing that you're seeing. I'm seeing our business.
Oh. Am I not in the right
Where it
one?
says no, you're on the right one. I see it now. If you click on it, are you able to open it large screen?
That's That's this one here.
without, yeah, without clicking visit.
Is that it?
Let me see. Yeah, I see it, but it's just small on the screen. I can't really zoom it in. Let me, oh, I can zoom it in. Okay. Is that them building it? I'm trying to,
I don't know.
Yeah.
This is El Segundo Refinery. That's the page. Ewit.
there we go. Go back to that picture right there with all it. Do you see all the piping?
Yeah.
That goes on for about a mile. Like I was driving on the street next to it, and that refinery is about a mile long, if not more.
I can
think
believe
it's-
it. I mean, you can see it. Well, the picture keeps changing because it's on some kind of a cycle, but
Oh, okay.
you can see, I mean, where's the people?
Here, I'm gonna pull up the picture on mine. Yeah, see if I can do that quickly.
See, there's a human being right there. You can see the size of the human being. And there's the people down there.
In person, yeah, on a picture, it doesn't do it justice. It is so huge.
Well, I can believe that. I mean, if I went back to let's see, where did I go back to? Can't go back to there. I gotta go back to, I don't want that page. I don't want that page. Back this thing up a notch. So this
There we
one,
go.
so this one is a long shot of the whole Chevron plant, but mainly what you see are the tanks.
Yeah, I'm trying to, here we go. This is a good picture. I got one,
Yeah, I'm gonna end the share
okay. Sorry, I'm on the cellular network, so it's super slow. I'm saving the picture. Here we go. Let me just switch my picture. So can I ask you, if I press the share button, what happens on my phone?
I don't know what happens on your phone.
Let's see what happens here. Do you see my picture now?
It says you started. Okay, I'm getting a pic. Yeah, there I get a good sized picture with a bunch of lights. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you see the telephone poles, it's in the distance. That goes all the way down. I mean, just from that angle, look at this. Can you blow? I don't know if you can blow it up, but I've got it pretty big.
It's full size. It's
Okay.
full screen.
Oh, great. Okay, so you can see the steps, which kind of gives you a scale on the left side, the steps that people go up. But this is only one section, and this goes on for about a mile.
Yeah.
But like, think of the massive scale of this. This is like building like multiple rockets. Look at how, can you see how high it goes up? It gets,
Well, yeah, it's
it's
higher
just
than
a huge,
it's higher than two telephone poles.
well, this is perspective. It's okay. So ready for this, Barry? It's higher than 30 telephone poles.
Oh, really? Okay. Can't tell from this angle because telephone pole in the front.
Right, but you're going back another, that's about half a mile away looking at it.
Okay. You can't really tell the depth of distance because it's not.
Yeah, in this picture. Well, the reason why I'm so fascinated with this is I would see where that picture is taken. That's where I was sleeping for a month. I did a job over in El Segundo, and every morning I got out and that was my view.
Yeah. Well, you probably got a lot of odor
So,
too. My parents lived
not
in Cedar Rapids, and there was a big Quaker Oats factory. And the Quaker Oats factory would put out this Quaker oat dust, which would settle on the windshield of your car overnight. And every morning you'd have to clean off the Quaker oat dust off your car.
yeah. Well, can you imagine the engineer that had to build that thing? Or the engineer group, like just.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Chevron company itself was the engineer. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm saying, how long did that take to refine the refinement process of building a refinery?
Probably 20 years. probably 20. I mean, you know, because you start off with Rockefeller with Standard Oil back around 1900, and then so we're talking about a century later, talking about you know a century's worth of development of fossil fuel refining.
Yeah, I remember when the Ukraine war started, I was researching the oil companies, and they were supposedly not buying oil from Russia anymore, but United States just did a little switcheroo where they bought it from Italy, and Russia was sending the oil to Italy, refining it, and then sending it over to America.
But the thing about oil is that oil from any given oil field has a signature chemical composition. I mean, you can tell where the oil comes from. I mean, you've got Brent crude in West Texas. They can tell exactly where it's from because every oil has a slightly different blend of constituents.
Well, they knew where it was from. They were buying it directly from Russia, but I'm saying through that proxy, the American people, if they knew that we were actually buying Russian oil, we were just buying it refined through the Italian refinery.
Yeah, that's, you know, what do you call it? Kind of gaming. That's a version of gaming the system.
Yeah, I think the biggest game that I've ever seen is working in New York for the largest paper manufacturer in the world and finding out all the backdoor companies that brand the products, American brands and things that you think are like legit American brands, but they're really were bought 20, 30 years ago from some European company. Like Colgate, I think it's Colgate. It's one of them is Johnson and Johnson, which is an American company.
Pretty sure Georgia Pacific is not Georgia, and I think Georgia Pacific is a foreign company.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing is how many companies were bought by foreign entities in the last 30 years that people still to this day think are American companies.
Yep.
And that might, yeah, that's, I think that is the biggest thing that if Americans could wake up to, I mean, they know it, but they don't know it. That when they go to the stores, they get that warm, fuzzy feeling because they know the product.
You know,
But they don't know it's a Chinese brand now.
Foxconn is a Chinese company that makes a lot of computer main boards. I think it's producer of main boards. I think it's Foxconn.
Yeah, they were going to put a plant in America, and I think that didn't work.
Yeah,
but,
I've got a keyboard here that it says on the back. It says Hewlett Packard. I'll only get it so you can read it. Maybe
I see it.
Anyway, it's Hewlett
It's
Packard. But you plug this thing in, and you identify the USB code. It's actually not a Hewlett Packard. It's Chicony, Chicony, which is a Taiwanese company. There's a company in Taiwan called Chicony, and they make mice and keyboards and other peripherals, and that's identified as a Chicony keyboard, not a Hewlett Packard.
So the entire thing is manufactured in Taiwan?
The Chicony company is the name of a Taiwanese manufacturer, and even though that's got a printed HP logo on it, it's a Chicony keyboard according to the USB code values. And when I plugged it into,
so they don't just buy the okay, good.
When I plugged it into the Macintosh says, "I don't recognize this keyboard. Press the keys to the left and right of the shift key," because it didn't even recognize it as an American ASCII keyboard. I plug it into the HP computer. HP says it's just a keyboard, no problem. But Macintosh says this is not a recognizable keyboard. This is a Chicony. What the hell is a Chicony keyboard? You know, is this an American keyboard?
I think what you just said, that's the most brilliant idea that Steve Jobs and Apple ever had, was to create a digital keyboard and a digital touchscreen that can interoperate with all the languages and all the key codes. That was just a game changer. because that means the one device can be used in every country.
Reason I have this keyboard is the guy who had it, he was plugging it into his previous HP computer, and it was as if the letter L was stuck. It would start printing the letter L. And
Oh, wow.
and so he wouldn't use the keyboard, and I said, let me take it home. Maybe it's just got some debris, in the key, under the keycap. And I plug it into my machine and it works fine. And I thought he had it plugged into a USB hub. I wonder if it was just a glitch between the keyboard and the USB hub and the computer. And when I take it home and I plug it in, it works fine. I can't reproduce
And sure enough, yeah, it wasn't schmutz in the keyboard. It was actually in the electronics.
I cannot reproduce the bug. I plugged it into, well, I only plugged it into two machines here, but it could very well be that it was that the USB protocol was just a little glitchy, and between the USB hub and the computer. So I'm going to give it back to him. I said, I can't reproduce the error. I said, if there's a little bit of foreign matter, in the keycap, I can take the keycap off, but I don't think that's it at all. I think it's in the USB electronic that it's just a little off, not the keycaps.
Yeah, that makes me. I've always wanted to travel to Japan or to other parts of the world and see the electronics that they have that don't translate into our languages or just can't be sold in America.
Well, yeah, as soon as you have a language and a protocol, you can have essentially it's a foreign protocol. It's not, it doesn't conform to those, because protocols have to have USB is a standard protocol. It's a certain formal standard, and the signals have to be within the range of the definition or they don't work right.
Do you think we'll ever reach a point in the global manufacturing or global trade where the standards just work? Like, do you think, we'll all adopt the same standards at some point, whether it be voltages in Europe?
I don't think we'll adopt the same standards, but I think we will adopt interfaces that adapt to multiple standards. So for example, a good example is the cell tower. Every cell tower is given an assigned frequency, an assigned modulation technique, and an assigned encoding protocol. And there's a North American standard, and there's a European standard, and some others. And the very first iPad models that Apple produced, they had to produce one model that could talk to the AT&T tower and another model that could talk to the European standard. Because in America, you suddenly had two different technologies. You had the European technology and the North American technology, and you could only fit one of the transceivers into the iPad. Eventually, they could make an agile transceiver that could switch between the frequencies and the modulation techniques and the protocols for the American and European standard. But I had an iPad that could only talk to the Verizon, or could only talk to the what was the other? Yeah, AT&T and Verizon were two different standards. One had adopted the European standard, and the other one adopted the North American standard, and they were incompatible.
This is on the SIM card itself, or
yeah, this is on the device that talks to the cell tower on the cell tower frequencies. And if you look it up, you can see every company was assigned a certain band, a frequency band. And within that band, they elected independently a modulation technique and an encoding technique, and they were incompatible systems. Eventually, they could make transceivers that could switch. But initially, the transceivers were either the American standard or the European standard. And of course,
I remember meeting a kid in the, I met a kid, I think it was like 2001, 2000, somewhere around 2000, that time period. And he was 13 years old, and he was selling online SIM cards for different standards so that people could buy when they travel. And it's now a regular thing, but back then it was very, this is 2000.
Well, the SIM card basically is like a serial number. So you can assign a serial number to a phone number. But that was independent.
Right.
That was independent of the technology. It's like AM and FM. You know, an FM radio can only receive FM signals from FM transmitters, and an AM receiver only receives AM. Modulation technique, frequencies, all, you know, shortwave radio again. So every system had a frequency band, a modulation technique, AM, FM, or whatever, or digital transmission, and protocols. And, you know, the American standard and the European standard television were very different. We had, what was the name of the American standard? I can't remember the abbreviation now because it's obsolete.
For broadcasting?
Yeah. What was the name of the North American standard for television?
I'd have to ask Google. I don't remember.
Anyway, so the thing is the American standard was not adopted in Europe because it was a very low resolution. It was 60 hertz because the American power grid was 60 hertz. And it was only 640, no, it was 512 lines. So it was very low resolution. And then the Europeans, when they developed television, they went to a higher resolution, but 50 hertz, because their power grid was 50 hertz. And so an American TV wouldn't work in Europe, and a European TV wouldn't work in America. They're completely different systems.
So that means that they were watching a higher frame rate.
Yeah.
And their brains were being conditioned differently than Americans in whatever time period that was.
Well, I mean, and then what the other thing is that film was 24 frames a second and television was 30 frames a second. So that meant that if you wanted to show film on TV, you had to stand on your head to keep it from having a flicker because they were operating at different frame rates. And the first kinescopes were a disaster, not a disaster, but they were just a mess because you were trying to match a 24 frame rate film to a 30 frame rate television rate. And that was not easy to do.
Yeah, I'm very sensitive to this because back in the 90s, I started the Association of Internet Professionals in my town. There was a national group. I got into them in San Diego at the Supercomputer Center. And I kept trying to establish this group, but I was running up against all the TV and broadcasting and people that wanted to do streaming. So there was another group at the City College that I was fighting professor to be in my group, and he was getting, you know, pulled into this other group. So instead of fighting, I just joined the other group. And so I'd go to these meetings where they would just sit and talk about the MPEG-1 moving to MPEG-2 standard.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating for me to be in this group, but I didn't want to even be around these people. I just wanted them all to join my Association of Internet Professionals.
Yeah. I mean, look at to go from the original North American television standard, NTSB, I think it was called, to the digital. We went to high definition TV around 2000. It took 15 or 20 years for the TV stations and the receivers to switch over from the North American original standard from the 1930s, 1940s to the high definition widescreen standard. That was a big deal.
Yep.
It took forever to convert over to high definition TV.
I remember that. I remember when I think it was around 2003 that it got popular, where the standard for HD TV was, you know, below $2,000.
Yeah, it was very expensive. There weren't that many stations that were broadcasting HD TV, and not many people could buy, you know, the big widescreen televisions, $3,000 televisions. I eventually bought an adapter that could receive HDTV and then knock it back down to North American, you know. AM.
Oh, wow.
And so I was, you know, I never actually, The first time I could actually get HDTV, I bought a computer monitor, a Westinghouse computer monitor that had built into an HDTV television receiver. So you could switch it between a computer monitor and a TV receiver. And then I made a homemade TV antenna to hook up to it so I could actually get the signal off the air. Because where I live, I don't have a TV antenna on my roof. I was either picking up TV antenna from a cable at first, and then I stopped watching TV and I discontinued my cable TV, and I hardly ever turned on the television, but I could only receive the local channels because I had a very small indoor antenna.
Yeah, you made me think, up in the mountains, we have a property up on the mountain that, I wonder if I put an antenna up there, what HD TV channels I can get locally.
You might have to have a highly directional antenna, steerable, because where you are, you probably have a few stations in different directions to the nearest cities in different directions. You can pick up.
There's only one city. Yeah, there's only one city in one direction. It's Bakersfield.
Oh, well, then if you can aim it at Bakersfield and you can get a pretty decent, then you can have a fixed, highly directional antenna aimed at Bakersfield and probably get a pretty good signal. Put that on your roof, maybe.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try. Yeah, I'm gonna have to try that because there is one mountain in between us and Bakersfield. It's called Breckenridge. So if we're above that mountain, we'll be okay.
Yeah, and the alternative, of course, is to just get TV over the internet. Now I watch the only TV I watch, almost the only TV I watch is over the internet. I can get off the air TV, and I almost never use it because there's very few occasions where there's something only on a local channel that's not, national streamed, on Xfinity or something like that. Because on Xfinity, I can get, practically every network there is.
Hey, can I ask you, I bought this $500 receiver for cell towers.
Mhm.
It's a unidirectional. And we have an area where there's a mountain. If you can see my hand, there's a mountain and a valley underneath it. And we're right in that valley.
Yeah.
So if you're here, you get the signal. If you're here on this side of the little hill, you get the signal. But we're in this little valley.
And you can't get the signal.
Is it? Yeah, it's just weak enough right at that point where it will flash on your phone saying 1 bar.
Yeah.
And then if you try to connect, it cuts out.
Yeah. I think they're now illegal. In fact, you may have told me this, that you can buy a transponder that will pick up a signal and then rebroadcast it on cell frequencies. Maybe it was Sam Chan who told me this, that you can buy or could buy. I think there may be illegal now transponders for cell phone signals.
To pick it up here and then beam it down.
You basically have a receiver up on a tower, and then it rebroadcasts on cell frequencies just for the local neighborhood, like for an acre or two, and that allowed him to get anywhere on his property. But I think I'm not sure, but I think they may be illegal now.
Yeah. Let me see. Here's it's got a bunch of wires. Hold on one second. Yeah. You got 3 parts of this bad boy. You got the antenna.
Yeah, big antenna.
You've got the antenna, and then let me pull this out. Come here, sucker.
This is the kind of thing that I would get the make and model and go read up on it on the internet.
I read all about it. Yeah. So you've got the booster
and coaxial cable out.
Yeah, and then the coaxial cable goes out to the rebroadcaster.
Yeah. So you receive I mean, I can do the same thing with the Wi-Fi. I can have a Wi-Fi base station that's picking up a Wi-Fi signal and then rebroadcasting on a different Wi-Fi channel as an extender.
Right.
So you can either have an Ethernet driven extender or a Wi-Fi extender that's picking up the Wi-Fi signal on one channel and then rebroadcasting it on the other band or the other channel.
So here's my question. Is the booster to send the signal back out to the rebroadcaster? How long of a cable could I use of a coax cable to go down to a rebroadcaster close enough? Like how far could I extend it?
Well, I'm going to say you can probably do maybe 100 meters of coax and get away with it. I'm just sort of guessing because there's not a lot of loss on a coaxial cable, but still there is loss. So the longer it is, the lossier the signal is going to be, unless you've got a repeater. You can also put repeaters in coax, but I'm going to say
That's what I was going to ask you.
I'm going to say this is off the top of my head. I'm going to say 100 meters might be.
100 meters is 300 feet.
It's a football.
Roughly.
It's a football field.
Yeah. Yep.
So the length of a football field is probably a rule of thumb for coaxial cable.
Okay. That's good
And
to know
also-
because I know they're,
But I mean, you'd either have to do the experiment or do some calculations. I don't really know for sure. I mean, you can also just measure the signal strength. You have to get a dB meter and you measure
that it's got a the dB meter is inside of the software when you're
Yeah.
calculating. It has a dB meter. So I did
So-
test that.
So if it can tell you the dB strength of the signal, it's like putting an antenna on your roof for television, and how many dB can you afford to lose in the coaxial cable before your television can't get a noise-free signal.
So here's my question. If I get enough strength to actually receive the signal through the antenna,
Mhm.
the booster, is that gonna amplify
Oh yeah,
the,
Booster's going to send out a strong signal on its end of the coaxial cable. But then the thing is that if that coaxial cable were 500 meters long, you might not get much of a signal out the other end.
right? And then it comes down to, this is like, kind of like converting it to I just, from my ignorance, like call it like a Wi-Fi, like this turns into the cell tower at that point.
Right, that becomes a new cell tower.
This is the broadcaster. Yeah.
And
So-
and you probably want to be within a few miles of it, or maybe less. Probably want to be within less than a quarter mile of it, because it's not broadcasting at the same strength as a real cell tower. It's probably broadcasting at a
Right. It's supposed to just broadcast the strength of your house. That's the
Right.
idea.
All right, so it might be a 30-meter range or 50-meter range or something like that.
So if I can stretch it out far enough,
Yeah.
oh, this is going to be a fun project because I looked into this years ago, and I met this guy at Fry's Electronics when they were open, and he was explaining to me how all of these electronic things work in terms of boosting signals. And there's some things that, like you said, that are legal and illegal to buy over the shelf.
Yeah. So the problem is that if you're rebroadcasting a cell tower, you could be interfering with real cell towers. So now if you're way out in the boonies.
Well,
you know,
no, I'm in the middle of like, we're talking, the nearest neighbor is half a mile away.
so even if it's illegal, you won't get caught because you won't be jamming any real cell towers. But if you try to do it in the city, you could end up jamming the cell frequencies, and that, of course, is the FCC is going to get on top of you for that.
Yeah, I think we're fine with the FCC up there because it's so scarcely I mean, we're talking about there's times when in a 12-mile radius, there's nobody there.
Yeah. I mean, except for the fact that you could get caught, you probably won't get caught. So-
Yeah, well, even the fishing, like, we could probably get away with a lot of things because the police don't come up there. There's no municipalities.
It's not the police, it's the FCC that
No, I know. I'm
Police
just
would-
saying.
Police would care if you were jamming the police channels. They
No,
would,
I know. I'm not talking about the electronic aspect. I'm just saying in general in life, when you're living that far away from society,
yeah.
the fish and game guy used to come up about once every 6 months, and we haven't seen him now in 3 years. He hasn't come up
Yeah.
there.
Because there's no fish and game to violate the catch rate. How much fish can you eat? If you ate one every day, you would be within the
Well,
supply.
they're just called yeah, they're just called fish and game, but it's really the park ranger warden kind of guy. Like, in other words, that's his jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And it's such a large area, he doesn't bother with us because he's got other people to mess with, like, that are causing problems.
Yeah. So two things. Number one is that if you're shooting game rifle, irresponsibly and hitting kids, and or if you're killing creatures that are endangered, but chances are you're not. I mean, you kill a deer, it's going to feed you for a month or longer.
Yeah. I'm just saying a lot of people in the cities like yourself or like myself, like I'm in the middle of the woods, but I'm in a small city.
Yeah.
But getting the feel, I don't even know how to describe it. You just have to be there. It's like going backwards in time. So I'm driving on a road. There's electricity. There's a bunch of houses. I go through a couple cattle fields and the road splits off and you see the electric line go down a canyon. And as I go north up the road, up the mountain, there's no more electricity.
Yeah.
And then as you go, the further you go away from the electricity, the more sparsely you'll see, quarter of a mile, nothing, half a mile, nothing. And you'll see one little cabin.
Yeah.
And then you go up another mile and a half and there's one little RV park there. And then you keep going and there's nothing. There's
Right.
nothing.
Yeah, because the cabin is not drawing power from the grid. It's just, it's an unpowered cabin. It might be using propane
Right.
or something like that. So, yeah,
Yeah.
you don't.
I just find it's something like the only people that get it are people that live in Alaska. That's the only people that really understand it. Because even in the rural areas of America, there's still electric lines.
Oh yeah,
In most rural areas.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, having
But where I live, there's no electric lines.
having electricity, having telephone, having natural gas or propane or some kind of fuel, unless it's wood
Mhm.
fuel. You got to have your basic utility services. You got to have water and sewer or septic tanks or something. If you haven't got water, you can't live. If you haven't got electricity, you sort of going to be living pretty primitively. Going to have battery powered radios or whatever. The radio in the car.
That's the way I lived when I went up there from 2006 to 2012. It was primitive, poop in a hole,
Yeah.
battery powered flashlights. So our biggest, most coveted thing was our solar lanterns.
Okay, there you go. And you might have a shortwave radio, possibly. With battery powered shortwave radio.
Well, yeah, you know what we had though, actually in 2009 is we had DirecTV.
Well, because satellite, okay, but satellite TV takes a fair amount of power because you got a receiver. I guess if it's only receive only, that's not too bad.
Exactly. The TV doesn't take too much and the receiver doesn't take too much. That's the interesting thing about living off the grid is when you're putting a solar system up and you're just building your bare bones out,
right?
You get just enough power to run the lights only up until a certain amount of time. The refrigerator up in that area is usually on propane.
Yeah.
And just enough to run the TV from say 7 to 9 at night. You get 2 hours.
Yeah. So yeah, you sort of work out the minimum services to survive. But our species survived for millions of years with no electricity, no telephone, no
Well, that's my favorite thing. We would have some nights when the wind was not blowing, we always did a burn because there was so much wood on the property. That's why that fire came through. It hadn't burned in 100 years.
Yeah.
So there were trees like ponderosa pine trees that grew up, 30, 40 feet,
Yeah.
and giant oak trees. And there was just so much to burn just to maintain the ability to walk around.
Yeah.
So we always had bonfires.
Yeah.
And that's to me that feels like a real, like living like most of the people on this planet is. You got your bonfire. When that goes out, the stars come out.
Right. Yeah. So you have your bonfire and you got a water supply, and that's about it.
So it's basically like people say, hey, I want to go camping this weekend. I just permanently camped for a couple of years.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do that.
Yep. And I ran the water through a filter, a charcoal filter.
Yeah. As long as you're not getting, some waterborne diseases, because there are those waterborne diseases in national parks. Is it listeria? What, I can't remember the names of them. There's a couple.
Yeah, that's one of them.
There's a couple of things that you got to watch out for in water from streams that you can have to disinfect or something.
Yeah.
I can't remember what they are now, but
Yeah, my dream is that we use the technologies we have to democratize, like they did with the cell phone. I'm noticing. Do you know by any chance, this would be a good systems thinker question, how many actual people are connected to the internet at this day and age? Like how many cell phones are actually transmitting to cell towers in the world?
I don't know, but I think in America, I would think that practically everybody in America now has a cell phone.
Well, I've been watching YouTube videos and they're starting to come from very rural areas. Like I just watched the Maasai people in Africa were all doing TikToks, and there's these little rural villages in Africa that if they stand and put, their phone on a stick high enough, it's pinging the towers.
Yeah.
And they're uploading their TikTok videos.
I mean, people have cell phones now pretty much practically any place on the planet. And cell phones have only been around for what, 30 to 40 years, I think. So it's
I think we're up. I would guesstimate, this would be my guess, is somewhere between 5.5 and 6 billion people are connected to the internet.
I was going to say maybe 3 billion.
What do you think?
Well, I would say between 3 and 5 would be my guess, but I could be wrong. I don't know. It also depends on whether or not a family of
Yeah,
5
I'm just
has one
saying.
cell phone. So how does that count? 5 people are connected, but they're all using one family cell phone.
That counts as the whole. That counts 5.
Okay, then I could say 5 or 6
because they all have different logins. Yeah. Let me see. Here, my connection is slow, but I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, I don't keep statistics like that in my head. It's a very crude estimate.
Well, I only keep it in my head because I've been doing it since the 90s.
Yeah.
So
I think
I work in marketing.
Back in the days of landlines, I think there was like 100 million landlines for 300 million people, something like that. But that would have been 40 years ago.
It's 1:46 p.m.
All right, Barry, it's saying 5.3
billion.
5.3 billion. It says there are 5.3 billion internet users in the world as of 2023, meaning 65% of the world's population has access to internet.
I could believe that. And because having access doesn't mean that you've got it 24/7 on your person.
No, it means, like you said, there's one person in the family with a cell phone and they pass it around.
Yeah, that, there's times a day when you can have access to it. So, yeah.
So if you think about that, we're almost, what is it, 8 billion roughly we just reached?
Worldwide, yes, about 8 billion, I think, worldwide.
Yeah, so we'll be at the rate we're going at this time, by 2026, there'll be 7 billion.
I don't know if it's gonna taper off, so it might taper off slowly. I mean, people in
I
Siberia,
think it's only gonna increase.
I mean, people out in Siberia, are they ever gonna they'll probably never gonna get cell phones because they're so sparsely
No,
populated.
they will because of Starlink.
Well, maybe with Starlink, but do they have enough money to pay for Starlink? First of all, how do they pay their damn bill? There are no banks out there. They live off the land.
No, you have to pay in the city, and then you go up there, you connect your Starlink, and then you pay through the internet.
I suppose, yeah. But you have to have some kind of a PayPal account or something. I don't really know. I've never been in Siberia.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just really excited about everyone in the world having internet. When I was, first building on the web, we had to look at the numbers. Okay, how many people could potentially see this?
Mhm.
And it was, 200 million, which was a huge number in 1996. You remember being on the internet back then when it was growing exponentially.
Yeah, and I also know that if I was lucky, if 100 people saw something I said or did, that was huge. And now it's less. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure it's less. I think today I'm lucky to reach 20 people.
Well, this is what drives me crazy, Barry, is there's five, what is it? 5.6 billion people are connected. It shouldn't be hard to get 50 or 100. I mean, when
You
there's
have to be
that
very,
many people connected.
you have to be very
Yeah.
entertaining, and I'm not very entertaining.
I don't think that's the case. You know what I think it is? I think you have to, it's like, you have to associate with someone with a newsletter.
Yeah.
Like for example, what's that group out of Cambridge? The presencing.org. You're not familiar with presencing?
No, it's not
Oh
regular.
wow.
Man, I'll tell you a
Okay.
story. Every Thursday we have a Toastmasters meeting in the community center. And because it's a hybrid meeting, I go to run the video for the hybrid meeting. So that every meeting the Toastmaster has a theme, just topic or theme of the day. So the topic last Thursday was something having to do with rules, like why do we have rules? And during the table topics section of the meeting, the table topics master called on me to say something about rules. So I got up and I told the story in 2 minutes that rule-based systems are mathematically chaotic, and that people invented rules because they thought they were going to be orderly, and they were mistaken. And I tell this little story that rules define children's games, and children's games are mathematically chaotic, and they don't create an orderly system. And I've been saying this for 30 years. And here's a room full of 20 some people, all college educated. And even though I've said this before, then it didn't register before. They all thought this was a very provocative idea that they never heard of. Now, if I've been in Toastmasters for 8 years and I've said this to people and written it up on the internet, and here's 20 people that I mention it and it's all news to them, I'm thinking they're not remembering anything I say, or it's not registering, or I have zero audience. Goes in one ear and out the other. And I realize I can look at, the blog will tell you how many people read your blog or how many people saw your traffic on LinkedIn or whatever. And I go, my reach is, if I'm lucky, 10 people a month. And I don't even know if they're remembering it. They just looked at it. All I know is they looked at it.
Yeah.
There's negligible evidence that I'm having any impact on anybody.
Yeah, I think the word marketing gets a dirty name, but it's really important to understand which audiences live where and how do you either pay for the attention or get it for free. But That is what marketing is. It's just understanding both where the people are and the distribution source to get to the people.
And I don't think my experience is all that unique. I think that even very charismatic people, if you say, what did you learn from them? You name the name of some well-known person, they couldn't tell you what they learned from them.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're lucky, they'll
Well-
might remember one or two lyrics of a popular song that Taylor Swift sang, and they can tell you a lyric, and that's one lyric out of 20 years of music. You're lucky to remember one lyric from one popular song.
Well, you're lucky to remember anything with the amount of information we're overloaded with on a daily basis.
So I think, if at the end of my life, one person remembers anything they learned from me, I'm probably doing better than the average person. I have relatives, who lived when I was a child and have died since then. And I go to look them up on the internet and there's no trace that they ever lived. There's no trace of them.
Really?
I had
Zero?
a cousin. I think he was a cousin. Yeah, well, Mishpacha, who owned a department store in Council Bluffs, Iowa. And he had his advertisements on the radio, and his name was well known. And I was trying to remember his first name. I knew his surname. I couldn't remember his first name. I went to search for it on the internet. Internet never heard of this guy. Couldn't find him.
Where did you go? Yeah, but where did you go on the internet? Google?
I went to Google and I said, Krasny, Omaha, Council Bluffs, People's Apartment Store, and it couldn't find him. I eventually found him because I eventually figured out enough to get to where I could find him, or I think I went on to Genie, where I actually have my family tree. I found him.
Yeah,
But I thought, here's a guy who ran a company, department store in Omaha, Council Bluffs, and suddenly, 30 years later, all records of him seem to have vanished from the public internet.
Is it just that person? Was any of his family members on there, or what was like, why is there no record in some city document or something?
Well, there would be, but I'm talking about if you do a search on the public internet, after somebody's been dead for 10 years, good luck. You can't even find their obituary. I'm thinking,
I don't know, Barry. I have a different relationship with the internet than you do, I think. I used to use Copernicus. Like there's if you get your own web crawlers and start crawling piles of information that are not sorted out by the average search engine, it's there. Like this is my own core belief. Like I believe in this so deeply that I taught it for years. And it's at this moment in time, it's absolutely true, is anything you could ever think of is on the internet. If you can think it, it's there. It's just a question of finding it.
So yeah, so I'd go to the Internet Archive or some other place and say, can you find this for me? And the answer is no, I can't. It may still be there, but it can't find it. Used to be that the internet could find anything that was on the internet. Now it can't anymore. You got to know where to look. You can find it.
You got to know.
Look, if you know where it was, you can find it. If you don't know where it was, you can't find it.
I think the key is to use, like, this is what I've done in my internet searching is I start looking and then I find these little pockets of information that are titled in weird ways, weird ontologies, and then I take those things and I refine my query with those words. So if I get enough, I call them magic keywords. And if I build a list on a piece of paper of these magic keywords and I put in the right query line, you'll find it.
Yeah.
But you have to build upon it. If you're using a word in English and it's written in another language, that's the biggest part of the internet is it's not all in English.
Yeah.
Like it's there, it's just not in English.
So it's like going to the library. There can be I don't know, 20,000 books in the library, but that doesn't mean that the card catalog is going to send you to the right place on the right shelf to find the thing you're looking for. Even though it's there, you know, the search engines, the search
Exactly.
engines don't have that much access. I'm looking for one paragraph of one chapter of one book. I'm not going to find it in the
Yep.
card catalog.
Yeah, I used to find my best information at a used bookstore because I'd go to Borders, I'd go to Barnes and Nobles, and I'm searching for this very esoteric writing that I heard a story from a person verbally that it exists in a book called something,
Yeah.
and I can't find that book. It's out of published date. But then I would find in a used bookstore, somebody wrote a book and a chapter of that book was referencing, talking about the book that's not published. That's how I'd find my information.
Yeah, it's taking almost as long to find stuff on the internet as it used to take to find stuff by going to the library in the old days, you know, and go down to and you sort of
See, that makes me sad. Like we've that's the thing that like it drives me insane about Sam Hahn is he talks all about systems thinking and organizing and ways of doing things, and then he posts up the videos that we're talking on here with 199.100 the date. It's like, what the fuck are you're literally just put hashtag system thinkers, hashtag Barry Court, hashtag Sam Hahn. Like it's it just drives me insane that it's being indexed purposely to not be found.
well,
And it's not because he doesn't want to, it's because he doesn't have the time. Supposedly, but you can write a fucking script.
he thinks that you can find anything that he's posted. Good luck finding something. I mean, I can recall an episode in some GCC, and I go, when did that happen? What month was it? And I can't find it because I can't go back and I can't go back and watch 300 hours trying to look for something that's some window that's 300 hours long.
Yeah, that was the whole, like, when we first started this, I said, let's make a WordPress website. And we did. I gave access to everyone that was currently on the Zoom calls at the time. So they all had a login, username and password to log in. I gave them all free access to rewrite over anything they wanted to. So in other words, there was no fighting over who's going to write what.
Yeah.
And it just, the only person was Glenn from Norway that worked on it with me.
Gasland, yeah.
Glenn Gasland. Me and him, we took each video from the YouTube, took the URL link, started writing descriptions on the videos, putting them up. It's still there, and I paid $30 a month to this day for this thing to still be there. And it's it just drives me insane. Just to me, it's about ego. It's not like can I ask you a favor? Is it possible to pull up the screen, pull up YouTube, and just click on the more button, and you'll see in the notes area of a regular standard YouTube video versus the GCC, there's no information in all the fields that let spiders crawl it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. So the they call it the doobly or whatever, the diddly do, or there's a jargon for that more thing. Yeah. So the GCC stuff, good luck finding anything. I don't think you can. Not without.
I was waiting for the technology now is so good, you can automate the entire process of what we do, and no one has to do anything. It can all be automated.
Yeah.
Every aspect of it. They even with GPT, they just put in these plugins. Did you hear about Zapier? You know that company Zapier? They just put an API to interface with the language model. So you can actually, instead of having a human do it, you can say, go to ChatGPT, take the URL from the video, have it transcribe it, and then make another script that says, now that you've transcribed it, put it to the pre-trained model and say, what were the best, most interesting things that the populace would be interested in during this call? Section that out into 2 paragraphs, then put another automated system that says, take those 2 paragraphs and publish to YouTube with those paragraphs. And the company is called make.ai or whatever, or .com, and it will let you write those scripts. We could just, as a group on a barn raising on a Saturday. Sorry, I'm so frustrated. I've been waiting for someone to just say, hey, let's spend, even if it took us 2 months, let's just, once it's done, it's done.
I mean,
And-
I'm finding when I used to write blog posts, when they first had blogs, Google search could find my blogs. Then they stopped crawling the blogs. And now if I say, I know I wrote a blog.
But that's not true. They didn't stop. They just put you down below on page 5. It's still there.
When I put in a search for a blog post that I know exists, and I use all the right keywords, it comes up with nothing. And I have to go to Blogger, and I got to go to my blog, and I got to bring up the list of articles that I actually wrote using my login, and then I can find it. But
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. And if that's the case, then there must be some button you're pressing when you're publishing to that blog that's not allowing the spiders to crawl it.
They used to crawl. It used to crawl them all the time. In fact, one of the
You know what probably happened? You probably clicked the button to not crawl.
No, I never
Well,
changed
then,
it.
okay, I'm very curious. Can you show me, just go to YouTube right now, or to Google. If you share your screen, go to Google. Let me see these keywords and see it not find it. I don't believe that.
Let me just get my
Yeah.
thing on a separate page here. So let's see.
Especially if one of the keywords is the name of your blog. I would be hard pressed to see that if you put the keyword as the name of your blog.
I'll put
And you put-
site colon. All right, let me just do this. Let me just do a
Okay.
plain old site and no keywords at all.
Well, here, share your screen so I can see.
All right, hang on.
In other words, if you're using the right keywords and you can't find it, I don't understand that. That doesn't, you're
first
probably
of all-
using the wrong keywords.
let me go back and do a screen share here.
Thank you, sir.
Screen share. And then where is it at? Find it.
'Cause I spent 20 years making a living on teaching people how to make sure you can be found on the internet.
All right, so here's a screen share where I've just put in the actual site.
Okay, my computer's a little slow, so it's just coming up now. So the keyword you used was site, molten lava, blogspot.com.
Right,
Those
so
are
let's
not
see.
the right keywords.
So no, yeah. So the only keyword, no keywords at all, just the site. Okay, so it finds the landing page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
Right, but
9.
take
Yeah.
out the word site and take out the word blogspot.com.
Just like that. Like that.
I'm saying just molten lava space Berry Court.
Well, actually, I mean, I can put my name in it, but often my name doesn't appear in the blogs.
What is the moniker? See, there you go. What's the moniker you go by on it?
Molten.
So type in the word molten lava, and then the word molten.
All right, let's just do this one. All right, so I just edited. There's an article called "The Freaking Spectrum," spelled this way, on the Molten Lava blog that I just edited yesterday. What did it find?
Here, put parentheses around molten lava blog.
What do you mean? Put parentheses around Molten Lava blog?
In the search, use a parenthesis, a bracket in the beginning of molten lava, and then do Molten Lava blog in a parentheses.
Like that.
Sure. And yep.
Turns out there's a band.
Actually,
Believe it or not, there's a band in the United Kingdom called Molten Lava, but that's not me. That's a musical.
no, I see the problem here. Just go to your blog real quick and I'll give you the keywords. Like, let's just look at your actual blog. Because this could be changed quite simply. And let's go to the very tip top, or even yeah, can you scroll to the top?
I'm at the top. This is the top.
Okay, there's the word Moltonic Musings. Is that on all the pages of your blog?
Yeah, it's a subtitle.
Okay, grab that subtitle and put that in the search. Moltonic Musings.
So I got to find where the put it there.
Uh-huh. And then put the word name, molten, like grab that out of there. Those are the keywords, is Moltonic Musings, and then name, and then molten. And I can look at the HTML to see if that's actually correct.
What did it find?
So take out everything.
Take out what?
Oh, no, take out the parentheses. And take out that freaking whatever thing.
That's the actual article I'm looking for.
Yeah, well, let's just see. Just first, I want to see if it's on by colon.
So now I'm getting Bedoin Orient on bedoinorient.com. And that's
No, I'm seeing it. Here, take out name molten and just do molten musings. I just want to see what I'm starting to I'm seeing what's going on actually. This really is helpful, Barry. Okay, so you think you named it molten lava, but that's like naming it cat piss or naming it dirt hill. It's something that's so ubiquitous that it's not going to find it. But moltonic musings is actually the keyword.
Yeah. So now I found 1, 2. This is a reference to it from somewhere else, and that's not it. So it found 2 items. Found the main page. There's the main page.
Mm-hmm.
Then it found 1 article from 2015. Why I found that article, I don't know, but that's an article it found.
Right, but let me just show you something. Go scroll up to that main page. Do you see where it says Molten Musings Wednesday, May 4th, PI originate
Yeah.
a text call on phone network? You see
Yeah.
that? And then it says here is ...
Yeah.
Go back to your blog and click on HTML. And
Click on HTML.
so this was just a little, yeah. If you right click on the browser, just right click, it'll say inspect anywhere on the page.
Yeah.
And then just click on the inspector so we can see the HTML.
Or I can just click on view page source. You want to view page source? Is that what you want?
Sure, that's perfect.
There's the title. Title's Molten Lava. Okay.
Yep.
And then there's all this stuff which is irrelevant because that's the.
So ready for this, Barry? I know you're going to think it's too simple, but if you just change the title to a different title, you'd be found.
Except that the reason that's the title is because if I go back, hang on a second. I got it.
And then what's the first
Because there's
one?
the title. There's the title. It's in the title of the blog.
No, I understand, but it's a terrible title. That's why you're not being found.
Well, that's the title. What it was when I created it back. I don't know, never long ago.
I totally understand, but I'm just telling you. Go down to the heading 1 is inflection pi originates a text call.
That's the most recent article I wrote, which is last May.
Right, and that's the that's what's, so if you go back to that Google search, you'll see that it's only picking up that header title and nothing else on the search engine crawl.
Where's the, I lost
That's
the,
the problem.
lost the page of the search now. Where's the page of the search?
No problem.
There it is. So because that's the main page.
Right.
This is the current main page, because this is the most recent article I ever wrote on the blog. So it's just picking up the main page. This is just the main page.
Right, correct. So what I'm trying to say is that the publishing was done in, it's like in the index card inside of the Dewey Decimal System at the library. The book was in the wrong Dewey Decimal area.
Oh.
So I'm just saying, yeah, what is musing mst.blogspot? That's something, no, that's not you. So all you can just literally just change the do you know how to publish to Google?
I don't know what you mean by publish to Google.
If you go into your login for Blogger, there's an area to connect your blog to Google. So in the settings for publishing, there should be the ability to put in what you want on top of the blog post to publish it a certain way.
That's comments, earnings, pages, layout, themes, setting. Here, settings.
Yep. I'm not a blogger expert, but
Publishing.
here you go.
Blog address.
You know, this is what I'm saying, but look up, go above a little bit.
Visible to search engines. Allow search engines to find your blog. Turned on. It's been turned on since the beginning.
Excellent. Okay, just scroll up a little bit though. Google Analytics Measurement ID, turn that on.
There's nothing to turn on.
Isn't there a little switch over on the right side? No?
That's show warning to blog readers for adult content. There is no adult content.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was something different.
No, that's I don't have adult
but
content, so it doesn't have
just scroll, see where it says description. Wait, scroll up. This will change everything. Just where it says description. Can you edit that?
No.
They don't let you edit that?
That's the subtitle. That's the title and subtitle. The title is Molten
Right.
Lava. The subtitle is Moltonic Musics.
Right, correct. But can you edit that so that there's keywords that could allow people to find you?
Not at this level.
Okay, well, if you can find out how to edit that, you just change the title and the description. And then scroll down. Do you have a favicon?
Favicon, where would that be?
That was just below the third line under title and description.
Oh, right there. It's not, click, there's nothing there.
Yeah. If you can figure out how to edit this area,
The
it will change everything.
favicon is this B for blogger. That's the favicon.
No, that's Blogger's favicon. You need a Molten Lava favicon.
No. Let me back it up a second. I don't know, is this the favicon here?
No, that's their favicon, not your favicon.
That's because
That's
because blogspot.com has this favicon. And
right, and you can have your own.
I don't know how to have your own if you're on blogspot.com.
Yeah, what I think is going on, Barry, if I'm not mistaken, thank you for going through this with me, is there's all sorts of features to make sure that it's published, but they probably are smart enough where Blogger is going to make you pay for those features. It used to be free, but now it's a paid service.
All I know is I've had this blog since, well, let's see, how do I tell how old the blog is? I think if I go to, well, I think I've had it since like 2005 or something like that.
Right, but it's also free, right?
Oh, I know how to tell. Yeah. Archives. So
Yes.
so the oldest articles go back. So there's the very first thing I ever wrote. October 30th,
Uh-huh.
2005. Okay. Yeah, October 27th. So no, well, no, I have to go to the bottom for the oldest one. Here's the very first one I ever wrote right here. October 26th, 2005. That's when I created the blog.
So let me, here, try this. Let's find something inside your first blog, like take the word Caprice, the fantastic flying scapegoat of Azel, and then put that into a search engine. 'Cause that's pretty unique. That might come up as you.
It finds it not on my blog, but the version it's on my own website.
Okay, what about keep scrolling down though. Let's see if Blogger picks it up, if it comes.
No,
Okay, I see what's going on.
it finds the version that I wrote on my own personal website. See, this is Musenet.info. That's the machine here in my house. And that's the first. So when I wrote this originally, I then made it also the very first article. Now, if I say, if I tell it to find that article on my blog, nope. Doesn't, even though it's there, even though it does.
Well, I don't think those are the correct, that's not the correct keywords to use then, if it's not finding it.
Well, it's the actual, that's the actual stuff that's in the article.
Yeah, but
I
so
mean,
this is what's going on, Barry. They slowly it's a, you know, this is a capitalistic machine, Google. So it's only trying to give the information that it thinks you want.
But see,
In other words, just if
it finds the
you're
duplicate.
using the wrong search engine. Yeah,
Well, I'm
get out of
using-
Google and just use a different search engine.
What search engine should I use?
It's your call. Which other ones do you use besides Google?
I don't use any others besides Google.
Oh, well, then that's why you're only seeing what Google wants you to see. And they're doing that on, you know how smart they are? They're doing that on purpose so that you only see what is not, they want you to pay for it, basically. It's their way of making you pay for it.
Can I do a site thing here
Which one?
on Bing?
We'll get away from the Bings and like
What else is
type
there?
in
Oh, so
millions of them.
So
Just type,
if on Bing I tell it blogspot.com, it finds it.
correct.
But
Yeah,
I got
Google's filtering
but I
you.
got it. Look, if I got to tell it where to find it, then I would just go to there and search on the. I mean, what's the point of telling it where? If I tell it where it is, what's the point of that?
Well, that's
I already know where it is.
That's because you never publish properly. In description, you have 2 words. And in the headers, you're not using the internet correctly, is what I'm saying, to find it. You're not publishing properly on your blog.
Well, what am I? I mean, I've got many dozens of articles. They can't all have. I can't put the titles of dozens of articles in the description.
Okay, here, go back to your blog post. I'll show you a little trick to start being found more. If you took your blog post, put it into Chat GPT and say bullet point the most important parts of this blog, and then you edit it with header 1, header 2, header 3, or keep them all.
Well,
In other
this
words,
is the
they
title
have
of the
tools
blog,
now
and
that
this
will
is
do
the
that
title of
for
the
you.
article. I mean,
Right.
every article has its own title, which is distinct from the title of the blog.
but not distinct. Okay, so the word disjunction, dysfunction, and error function,
It's the title of the article.
Co-
Title of this
right?
article.
Correct. But you could change that to keywords that will only be on this blog.
I guarantee you that
So-
if you look up disjunction, dysfunction, you'll probably find nobody else or hardly anybody else who ever has disjunction, dysfunction, and error function together in the title of an article.
Correct, which means no one else is searching for that either.
Well, why would they search for
So,
it?
so let me explain it to you. Think of ontologies and think of hierarchies, okay? You need a heading hierarchy with a heading 2 hierarchy going down to heading 3, heading 4, heading 5. And that's what will get you seen on the internet
Well,
if you want to be seen.
I mean,
And also, the way that you're publishing your blog is not easy for search engines to pick it up in a way that will allow it to be seen.
well, remember I started this out, what is it, almost 30 years ago, 28 years ago?
Yeah, no, I get it. I totally get it. We've had this conversation many times. I'm just letting you know there's 3 things going on. One is the publishing back years ago was great and it worked wonderful, but the search engines changed since then.
They stopped crawling blogs, I don't know, 10 years
They're
ago.
still crawling it. They're just not indexing it as important.
Well, it's because nobody's
And
reading
even
my
if they
stuff.
did-
Nobody anymore reads my stuff from that one. If I go to the, where is it? If I go to the stats, here, let me go to stats. Now, what am I looking at? All time 200,000. Today 25. Yesterday 18. This month 404. Last month 1,000. I think those are views, if I'm not mistaken. Are these views?
Not
Yeah.
necessarily views to the home page, views to the page. but
Anywhere.
Are you on an
Anywhere
individual?
anywhere on the site? Okay. Is this so? On the 4th of November, there were 37 views, then 3 views, then 23 views, then 7. So, and look, and in between there's, well,
Here,
so I'm getting
put more about,
I'm getting no more than a dozen or 2 dozen views a day.
right, but where's your Google Analytics to see where they're coming from? The views.
Let's see, where is Google Analytics? I don't know where that is.
In
well,
other words, Barry, just in simple
Well,
terms.
here it is right here. It tells you which ones, it tells you how many.
Right.
This song parody got 2
It-
views. This article got 1 view. Everything else got, so here's the things that got 1 view. This is right here. These are the analytics. Almost
no,
everything that got a view got 1 view, and one thing got 2 views. And you know why?
So Barry, have you ever? Yep, go ahead.
You know why this got 2 views? Because I
You posted on
I
Facebook.
posted this link on Facebook a day or 2 ago.
Correct.
So,
So-
one of the views
so-
is from Facebook itself.
Okay, so Barry, if you can hear me, from my perspective, it's watching a kid with a paper car drive down the road, wondering why the car is ripping apart and not working. So professionally, you want to be in a car that's made of steel. You're using a free service from Google that's giving you all of 2 options when you should have 8,000 options on how to be seen on the internet.
Well, I also have, what's the other one called? I also have WordPress. Where's my WordPress? I have Google Sites. I have WordPress. I have my own personal website. So I have like 4 or 5 primary websites. Blogger is one, WordPress is one, Sites is one, and my own website here at the house is actually 2.
Uh-huh.
I mean, and they all have different sort of reaches, I suppose you'd have to say. Like
No, they all have,
here's my sites.google.com, okay? And on the left side, there's, all the articles are listed right here on the left side. You can see everything that's on Google Sites right there, okay? If I go to Blogger, where's Blogger? This is Blogger. Here is recent posts on Blogger, not Blogger, WordPress. This is WordPress. And a lot of stuff is on more than one of these. A lot of these things are on 2 or even 3 of my different sites. I replicate them sometimes.
uh-huh.
So there's my Gallimaufry blog, my Molten Lava blog, my Google Sites blog, which is called Burned Umbrage, and then musenet.info, which is, some original stuff that dates back to the 35 or 40 years ago.
Yep. Yeah, we've done this many times over the years, Barry. If you don't want to listen,
the answer is my stuff is so arcane that practically nobody on the planet gives a fuck about it.
right. So if you can think of this analogy, okay? They've taken your booth that was at the state fair, and anyone could come up to your booth, and then they moved you to the back of the fair. That was in the 90s. Then in the 2000s, wait, just let me finish. In the 2000s, they took you from the back of the fair to way in the back of the parking lot. Then they took you from the back of the parking lot out about 10 miles out of town.
Yeah.
Then they took you out from 10 miles out of town and stuck you in the middle of the desert.
Because it's antique stuff I wrote 30 years ago.
No, it's not that. It's because the way that you didn't pay for the spot in the fair.
Well,
because you want to know why they did that? They did that because you weren't paying at the state fair for your spot, and there was 8,000 other people that wanted that spot that came in and were paying.
Well,
so if you think of the internet from when you started, only another 2 billion people logged in and wanted your spot.
Well, because they wanted to promote something to earn a living. I'm not making any money off of this stuff.
Yeah, but I'm saying Google has to sort through 2 million other people that want to be seen too.
Yeah.
So why would they show you over them?
They wouldn't, because my stuff is long written ages ago, and everybody who wanted to read has probably read it by now.
I don't know how to explain it to you. I get it.
I'm not going to spend $1 million so people can find my stuff. I'm sorry.
No, I agree with you. I don't think you should, but you don't have to spend $1 million. You could spend $5.
Oh, well.
I'm just saying, if go to work, if you just go to WordPress.com.
Well, that's where
for
Blogger
free. There's so many things you could do. No, I'm saying WordPress.com. You have a free site with them, correct?
I have barrycourt.wordpress.com.
Right. If you go into your WordPress account, there's places for description and things that you could do to change all of. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse in the sense that I just told you I could put different descriptions, different keywords, and then you would go to your Google Analytics and say, "Hey, Josh, I was getting 25 hits a day. I'm getting 125 now."
Well, there's barrycourt.wordpress.com. It's called Gallimaufry.
Mm-hmm.
What now? What?
There, if you share your screen real quick, I just want to show you there's a place that when you publish, you can actually publish to other places. Not just, you can publish to places that are already indexed in the category that you are. That's what it comes down to. You're just ontologically miscategoried. So if you click on your settings, and they're going to make you want to pay for these things. And that's the problem.
Is this settings up here on my sites?
I can't really see on my screen. I'm sorry.
Stats?
Right. First of all, just right off the bat, domains, because you don't have a domain, you're already pushed out to the desert. Websites that don't have a domain are indexed lower than websites with a domain.
Well, my domain is.
That's just one thing. I'm just letting you know, like, the minute you want to move out of the desert, you've got to buy a domain, you've got to buy a place. And then if you click on plugins, the minute you want to use plugins on a free blog, they're going to make you pay.
Let's see, where's plugins? Let's see plugins. Oh, there it is. Wait a minute, I lost it. Here it is.
It's going to say upgrade, right? To use the plugins.
Upgrade. I'm not a business.
No, I know. I'm saying you're not going to do that. Now click on Jetpack. Do they give you Jetpack for free? They're probably going to make you pay for Jetpack.
This is basically analytics. Access full act. This
Which
is
one?
basically going to get my. But the thing is that why would I want to be tracking my users if I mean where's the thing stats? Look, 7-day highlights, 3 visitors,
Right.
3 views, no likes, no comments.
Right. Click on Jetpack. It's right next to feedback, right below feedback.
I had 3
Um,
views. I had
they
3
make-
views. What's the point? Why would I need any more? I already know that I got 3 views. Now what else do I need to know? What else are they going to tell me about 3 views?
What they're going to tell you, Barry, is the analytics of who's coming where. Okay, so can I just tell you a story and we get out of this real quick? Tell me when you're done.
I'm waiting for the story.
Oh, I was waiting for you to stop sharing the screen.
Oh, let me get out of the screen.
Sorry.
I thought. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna I'm shifting gears. I'm going in. We were in 2nd gear and I'm going over to like 5th gear so we can cruise on the highway.
Wait a minute.
Okay. So yeah, take your time.
I just got to get the thing where I can see it. Here. All right. Were you going to share screen or what?
Oh, I was just waiting for you. No, I'm good. I was just gonna tell you, the story is basically, imagine that you are at a place that's a prominent town square where a lot of traffic is, a lot of people are passing by, and people see you every day. But only a certain amount of people know who you are because they stop to actually interact with you. But one day a news reporter comes and does an article on you, and you become famous for that week or that month in your town because you're printed all over the main newspaper.
Yeah, that happened a few times.
Sure. In order to interact with those people in the analogy of publishing to the internet, is you have to be put into the bin of the reporters running around town saying, who will I interview this next week, and get into the queue. And that's what those services do, is they put you into the queue to be picked up by other places. If you have the paid services, that gives you access, just like going to a country club or something. You're now in the club. And so you're in that bin of things to be picked up. So that's what's going on. Does that make sense? Is it, I know you know these things, but
I mean, I've got relatives who have businesses, multi-million-dollar businesses, and they advertise. I don't have a multi-million-dollar business. I don't advertise.
right, that's your mentality because you're from the old school.
Well,
I don't
because
have
I'm
a
I'm not
multi-million
selling
business, so I don't
anything.
advertise.
This is not for an income.
It's not commercial, right? You're like me. You got on the internet when it wasn't commercial,
Right. And
but now the internet is completely commercial.
right. And it's useless to me because it's social networks, which are anti-social networks, and it's commercial, which I'm not of that either.
I totally get it. I'm right there with you.
The internet has become essentially a platform of noise, of commercial crap that nobody wants to buy, and antisocial opinions on the antisocial networks that nobody wants to read. And academic stuff is of zero value to the general public anymore.
And yet some people get millions of views on academic subjects every day on the internet.
Well, yeah, but there are people who,
And the reason they do is because they pay money.
oh yeah, I mean, Neil deGrasse Tyson has Star Talk, and he probably has to pay money to get on it, and Michio Kaku and these people, they're promoters. I'm not a promoter. First of all, I got nothing to say besides what I already said.
Yep. No, I get it. I totally get it. It's the world of publishing is a very interesting world, and when I watch what the young kids are doing, they find these little niche markets that are free, but they want to exploit them. So in other words, they find those markets will be exploited over time and bring them from like the analogy of inside the state fair outside, and they'll slowly move out. But they're finding new state fairs that you didn't know that people were visiting.
Well, I'm not on TikTok. I'm not on
You're not on the 9,000 places that people are looking.
no, because they're looking for crap. I'm not selling crap.
You know where you should be on? Doesn't Google have a whole thing for published papers? The searching for published papers. They have a
They have a thing
database of all
there's
the,
something called Google Scholar. Yeah,
yeah, Google
published.
Scholar.
Yeah, there's Google
Have
Scholar.
you published?
I
Have
don't
you
know.
published to Google Scholar?
Well, let's see. If I go to Google's, I have to go to Google Scholar. So I go to scholar.google.com.
Yeah, they'll probably make you pay for it.
I don't know what. Oops, I spelled it wrong.
You probably have to have an academic university login.
Let me put my name in and see what happens.
I,
Well,
I, I'm frustrated for you, Barry.
look. Oh, I'm not sharing this. Let me share this.
Okay.
Share screen. I gotta find it.
I'm just so you know, I feel your frustration because I was working with a partner. We started an LLC called Microbiome Learning Center. I think I told you about that.
So here's Google Scholar, and I put in my name in the search. Okay. Here's here's a 2001 published paper. Here's a 2008. Yeah, 2008 published paper where I'm a co-author. Here's a 1972 paper that I wrote when I was in grad school. It's the third one. Here's a 2002 paper. So, and look at the titles of these things. Okay. Here's 1976. Here's a published paper in the Siam Journal on Control from 1976.
Okay.
Yeah, so you put my name into Google Scholar, you'll see, and it claims that there's. Are these still me? No, these are these people with no. So that's not me anymore, even though they got the same.
Well, can't you click? Can you click on your name and it should bring up all the papers you've been?
That's what I did, but the thing is,
No, I'm saying, is there like, see how there's a green hyperlink to the people's names? Like Picard, RW Picard is a name.
like that.
Yeah, if you click on his name.
Well, that's
What I'm saying, this is what I'm trying to say. If click on RW Picard next to. Okay, so Rosalind is in this network in the club because she has a hyperlink, but you don't. So you don't have a profile on Google Scholar yet.
So I go back here. So yes, you're right. I don't have. So none of these are hyperlinked.
Yep. And what I'm trying to share with you is if you have a domain for WordPress, then you get an authorship ID. And then if you publish under that authorship ID, you'll be found everywhere on the internet.
Yeah. I don't.
So it's a hierarchy.
Well, Rosalind Picard is a world famous professor at the MIT Media Lab, and I'm not world famous, and I'm retired, and I'm not.
Well, you don't have to be world famous to be, you already have published papers. You just need to let Google Scholar know that you have a profile so they can access your profile. You've never done that. If click on my profile
Well, like create
on
your
the top,
profile.
yeah. I'm saying create the profile and it might pick you up and give you a hyperlink. But I'm saying this is how the internet works is they want to know who you're affiliated with. And I'm saying if I was your search engine optimization manager, I would make sure that your personal blog was registered with all of the different directories in all of the academic world throughout the world. And by registering with those and their profiles are created on all those directories, then Google will start putting you higher on all of your old blog posts.
What do I put
that
for
makes sense.
affiliation since I'm no longer affiliated with any institution since I'm retired? I have no affiliation because I'm retired.
See, yeah, you're thinking to just put MIT. Where's the other lady out of? You're affiliated with her on that paper.
Media Lab.
Media Lab. Put professor of physics, Princeton University. Put associated with Media Lab MIT or something. I don't know. I'm not an expert at this academic world.
But see, the thing is, I was a visiting scientist. I'm not anymore.
Yep, but you're associated, meaning it's a link over.
I do have.
I apologize. I got to call up Gisela. She's traveling back from LA. But thank you for going down this rabbit hole because I really think just a few minor changes like description on your blog and a few other things, and then being listed in maybe 5 to 10 directories, you can ask ChatGPT to help you with this and say, what directories in the academic world do I need to be listed with in order to publish, in order for my published works on the internet to be seen on more search engines? If you ask ChatGPT, it would give you a list of all the places that you can register with, like Google Scholar, and they talk to each other. So once Google Scholar knows who you are and you have a profile, and another place knows who you are, I don't have to tell you, you know how the internet works. You put those key links from your blog out to these places, and then those places put them from those places to your blog. Now you're getting listed high on search engines. Does that make sense?
I'll see if I put this in. Let me go back. I gotta find it again. "25 articles under that name, 611. All right, now what do I do? Am I done? Did it do it?
I don't know. Let me see.
I had the articles I wrote. So do I?
Do you have click on that? Let's see what happens when you click. Yeah, it's asking you if those. You might want to look at the articles and make sure it's actually you.
Oh, they are me.
But
I gotta go and click them all. Well, that's just it. Only 5. Okay. Selected 35. Groups, articles.
Barry, I'm going to let you keep doing this because this is a rabbit hole you could go down for a long time. Because I'm sure there's a lot more published areas besides just Google Scholar. Like, did you, when you were publishing papers, what academic institutions were you affiliated with at the times of these papers?
Stanford University and MIT.
So I would go to Stanford University and see if they have their own version of Stanford Scholar to make sure that your profile is. In other words, if you put your link from your profile, do you have a profile at Stanford?
Alumni maybe.
If you find if they inside of Stanford, if they have an alumni profile and you put in the description your blog, you'd be surprised. I bet you'd start getting at least 50 more clicks a week or whatever. In other words, the people at the academic institutions that are searching, if you let them know that when they're searching that you exist, you'll start getting more links to your blog. So I hope this was helpful, Barry.
I think this is the end of it here. Let's see. The rest of them are, well, no, that's not me. I mentioned in these, but I'm not actually the author.
Okay, I'm gonna let you go. I got to take off.
Okay.
Thank you for going down this rabbit hole. And one day I will find some benefactor that will pay $5 or $10 a month for you. Something, a nominal fee. And you don't have to be a business to just pay for the directory to link everything on the internet properly.
So I have to add a photo. Let's see, do I have a photo?
I'm gonna let you go. Let you keep
All right.
doing this.
Okay.
All right. Cheers, Barry.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Let's see, I should stop the recording if I can find it again. Where is it? Where's the Zoom? Oh, stop the share. There we go. Then I can stop the recording.